All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Reil Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Welcome to this emergency town council meeting, and I want to say that this meeting is being recorded. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay?
And are you from GCTV?
No, that's over here.
GCTV. 22 News. Western Mass. Thank you. And I got yours, yes.
Okay, so we are starting this meeting at about 6:10, and the clerk will do roll call numbers.
Councilor Sun.
Here.
Councilor Lobeck.
Here.
Councilor Alice.
Present.
Councilor Piper is absent. Councilor Dolan.
Present.
Councilor Gilmore.
Here.
Councilor Wheeler is absent. Councilor Mayo.
Here.
Councilor Lanovich.
Here.
Councilor Mass.
Here.
President Renault.
Here.
Vice President Ricketts.
Here.
And Councilor Semple is expected to be here around 7.
So we have a quorum. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is the public comment, because we have so many folks here tonight, and it's really great to see so many people come out. But because we have so many people coming out, I really have to hold you to the 3 minutes. I'll let you finish your sentence if the timer goes off during your 3 minutes, but then I'm going to have to interrupt you, which feels rude, but it has to be done. So I'm gonna call you out. Greenfield residents go first, and it's MJ Adams. And please, for the record, state your name and your address when you get up to the seat, and please speak clearly in the microphone. The people in the back are not going to be able to hear you if you don't.
MJ Adams, Community Development Office for the City of Greenfield, and that's the capacity of here speaking this evening.
Can you get a little closer to the mic? Or you can push it right up to you.
All right.
That better? Anybody in the back here?
Great. I'm MJ Adams, City of Greenfield Community Development. I'm here to speak in support of Mayor Martin's request to modify the town code that would bring the use of the town common into alignment with other town-owned lands. The town common's use as an encampment for individuals without a home cannot continue. We are requesting this modification in the code to provide a clear path to resolving this situation. Over the past few weeks, staff and the city have participated in the meetings organized by Franklin County Resource Network in collaboration with representatives of folks living on the commons. In response, the city has first organized a pop-up resource fair to ensure folks were aware of and had information on local services available to assist the homeless. And I'm going to shout out and do a special thank you to the providers who sent staff and information that day. Number two, Mayor Martin convened a roundtable with leadership of local organizations that provide services to homeless individuals. Community Action, ServiceNet, Elliott Homeless Services, and Greenfield Housing Authority all participated along with public safety officials and staff. And our goal was to strategize on how to best address the issue of homelessness in our community. In light of these activities and in anticipation that the council will act to implement this modification in the code this evening, with an implementation date of mid-September 2018, the mayor and his staff will first convene a rapid rehousing team to coordinate direct work with folks on the common to connect them to services, housing, and employment. Community Action, ServiceNet, Salvation Army, and Elliott Homeless Services have all agreed to collaborate in this effort. Greenfield was recently awarded a grant specifically to assess people who have barriers to employment find a path to gainful work, and HAMMOND Personnel Services is staffed up for this new program to start this month. Number two, we'll create a task force to address stopgap shelter needs for this upcoming winter season. And three, work with the Greenfield Housing Authority to develop additional single-room occupancy units in Greenfield and to shake the trees for any underutilized housing resources. We request that the council adopt this modification with an effective date in mid-September so that folks on the common are strongly encouraged but also have the time to make other living arrangements. Greenfield has shown itself to be a caring and compassionate community. Resources to assist homeless individuals are scarce. The mayor intends to make some funds available to assist in this effort. That said, I also want to call people's attention to the Interfaith Council of Franklin County's Homeless Assistance Fund, which was recently set up to accept donations to assist in this effort also. If you'd like more information on those local resources available to homeless and also details on how to donate to the Interfaith Council's fund, please see the flyer that Maria Burge has in the back. Thank you.
Thank you. Garrett Conley.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I don't have a complete
Eric,
answer.
could you please say your full name?
Garrett Connolly, 84 Congress Street, Greenfield. My purpose for being here is that I'm a student of the economy and the society that we live in. So I don't have any real answers, but I'm only here to say that this is just the beginning. This is only the very beginning of the tip of the iceberg. That our country is the national level is creating a problem, a blowback, just like what's happening in Europe. All the refugees in Europe are going all through Europe. We have the same problem here. So I don't have the answer, but whatever we're going to do, although I will help. If you ever have a project you want to assign to me, I'm retired now, and I can help do something. But I just wanted you to know that I know, and if you ever want to sit down and talk about it, because it takes quite a bit of time. I don't hate my country. I was born here. I love my country. But the behavior of the nation is causing this to happen. And every town in the nation is overwhelmed, and it's going to get bigger and worse. And so you're going to have to get ready and realize that you can't cure these people that are living in the common. They're just, if they find a place, there's going to be more, they're going to come. And if it doesn't matter where it is. So that's really about, the one little thing I wanted to mention was I understand the idea when my mother first didn't allow us to feed the stray cat. You know, I thought my mother was heartless. And then when I grew up and didn't feed the stray cat, I was uncomfortable with myself. So these are people. We do have to take care of people, but if we're nice, then, and the whole nation finds out that we're nicer than everybody else, then we'll become inundated. So I hope that you will find a way to communicate with the other towns and figure out. None of you are smart enough. This whole room I'm probably one of the least of the thinkers that there are, is this whole town is full of really intelligent people. Somehow you have to find a way to focus the intelligence, the distributed intelligence of the town to come up with a solution, because this is a major problem and it's not going away. Thank you. And I will help. I promise. Ask me, I'll help.
Thank you. Hazel Dawkins?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Hazel Dawkins. I live at 91 Smith Street. Before I moved here, I lived outside Philadelphia, and I was a volunteer in the program which the Interfaith Council had organized. People were chosen to be in the program for 6 months. Every 2 weeks, they lived with their families in one of the churches. A bus would take them to jobs in the morning and take the children to school. The idea was that within 6 months, they would have saved enough money to get an apartment. And it was a program that was very successful. And sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Penstraw.
I'm Michael Penstraw, I live at 60 Crescent Street in Greenfield. I want to first of all thank the council and the mayor for providing this opportunity to hear from the community, as pleasant or unpleasant as that may be. I'm also a member of Second Congregational Church, and I and a handful of other folks have been opening our church every evening for about 30 minutes or so that folks who are camped on the common can come over and use the restroom and clean up. And while we are happy to provide this ministry and think it is an important ministry, we also recognize that it is extraordinarily inadequate and a very, very temporary solution to this problem. So as we look at more longer-term solutions, I trust and hope that the council and the mayor and others in the community who are working on this will be guided by 3 principles. The first one is that we need, I think, to find safe camping ground as soon as possible, because we know that there are folks who do not feel comfortable being in a shelter and want to remain outside as long as possible. And we should support that and provide a safe place for them to do that. Secondly, if there is a shortage of shelter space, we need to begin addressing that immediately so that when the weather turns colder, we will have adequate space. And thirdly, and most importantly, we must begin to use all of our resources and creative abilities to provide more housing, affordable housing for the residents of this community. Safe and affordable housing is not a luxury. It is a basic human right. We have a moral obligation as a community to ensure that every member of our Greenfield community has safe and affordable housing accessible to them. And as one of the previous speakers said, I am also willing to help find those solutions. Thank you very much.
Ginny DeSorga, 43 Silvercrest Lane. I echo the statements of the gentleman speaking before me. That was wonderful. Thank you for bringing us together tonight. Looking around at this room, I would just have to say that because homelessness is right in the midst of our common, it has raised the level of consciousness for all of us. I've noticed a much greater awareness among the people. I was there for 45 minutes today, and in short order, someone was bringing clementines, another person brought a case of water, someone else dropped off 4 pillows. I support anything that we can do to give the people who need it humanitarian shelter. I'm in support of President Renaud's ordinance enabling religious organizations to provide shelter for the homeless. Firstly, because several of the residents I spoke to today were in favor of that, as opposed to a camping solution that was further away from the center of town. Also, at least temporarily, the churches would be able to provide more basic human needs than a campsite would. Lastly, I asked the people in the meantime what they might need on a practical level until we have figured out something that we could do. And they spoke of 3 things. If anyone had any extra of these bath towels, water bottles, or large tarps. That's something on a practical note. In the meantime, until all of you wonderful people figure out something to help our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary Hoffman?
I'm getting out my seat, so somebody should take it. All these standards. Hillary Hoffman, 30 Abbott Street. It's absolutely critical, in my view, to listen to the people who are camping and the agencies who are already supporting them. And there should be no legislating without a thoughtful, specific, detailed public plan in place that they themselves support. I do not in any way support restricting use of the common. The common is not a park. It can't be run like a park. Its intent is not for recreation. It's supposed to be open and available to all. That's part of our heritage here in New England. It reflects our community's values and its space for public expression. And our values should be to help those in need and keep them safe. And we should not put anything in place that can be interpreted as restricting expression. Thank you.
Henry Albin?
Henry Albin, 308 Main Street. I'm representing Jones Woodson Architects. Our office is directly across from the common. We look out onto it every day. And we, as an office, are concerned about the way the town is going about handling this issue. I agree completely with the person who spoke before me that the town needs to really think about it and have an actual plan in place before they try to change how the common works. This feels like a short-sighted move to hide a problem and not actually fix it. And all the promises in the world don't mean anything unless there's already a plan in place and already resources allocated to actually help the people on the common. So I don't see how preventing people from camping on the common actually solves the underlying issues. And it seems like it's just not vindictive, but about appearances only and about not really helping people, but making themselves feel better because we don't have to look at it anymore. Thank you.
Caitlin McKenna.
This is scary. There are so many people here. But it's also incredible to think that the community cares so much about their community no matter what people's viewpoint are about the use of the common. I think everyone's coming from a point of view that they care about this town and they want it to be a positive place. I'm super excited that people came forth. Did I even say I was Caitlin McKenna?
I don't think you said your address.
Okay. I'm excited that people are stepping forward with not just concerns but solutions. I'd love to say that's what I'm doing right now, but I actually do have a concern. I've always been a little bit like always thoughtful about things like sanitation, I should say. That's my brother's an immunologist. I think it's a family trait. And I guess one of the things that I hope that we come out of this meeting tonight with is some really immediate solutions to address the sanitation concerns that are coming forth from such an intensive use of a property in town that doesn't have facilities available 24/7. So if folks are working hard and coming up with solutions, I mean, we are all in the same boat. I don't think anybody is sitting here that has spoken or sitting around me is thinking this is an us or them issue. This is an us issue. We're all here together. And we need to address the sanitation needs immediately. If we're going to wait till mid-September to come up with some strong solutions for next, then we're going to have something really in place. I know the past few weeks I've been looking at the paper and see occasionally in the police log that business folks are seeing some concerning things with human waste, and that's going to happen, right? If places aren't open 24/7, human beings need to take care of themselves. So I'm hoping we leave tonight with some concrete plan to deal with the immediate sanitation needs. Thank you. Marinda?
Hello, I'm Marina Scabas, 90 High Street, and just a personal thank you for saying my name right. Good evening, and around this room and throughout the town, both sides of this issue are demanding for a resolution for the issue at hand. I personally drive by the encampment and walk by on Main Street quite frequently, and while I hold no personal judgment against the people that have to live on the common, what concerns me is the act of smoking on the common, which is illegal on town property. I believe that a lot of should be respected at the same time as we are looking for the solution to the issue. Thank you.
All right.
John Griffin?
Hi, my name is John Griffin. I live at 89 West Street. I'm also the chair of the Conservation Commission. I'm here both as a private citizen as well as the chair. I first and foremost would like to speak against the proposal to prohibit presence on the common outside of specific hours. I would like to remind the council that violation of Chapter 346 is subject to arrest and a $200 fine, and I would ask what exactly prohibiting someone's presence after hours on the common would accomplish, other than adding to an inability to secure housing and continue to survive. As the chair of the Conservation Commission, I would speak to the proposal that has been mentioned to provide a camping site at Wedgewood Garden. And I would just like to mention that Wedgewood Gardens is jurisdictional to the Conservation Commission, and so any motion to build a campsite there would need to be come before the Conservation Commission. Thank you very much.
April Jones?
Hi, I'm April Jones. I live at 87 Stone Ridge Lane here in Greenfield. I'm also the president of the Stone Soup Cafe that's here in Greenfield. The reason I moved here and the reason I volunteer at the cafe is because I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all persons, and I believe in justice and equity and compassion for all persons. I thought that I found in Greenfield a preponderance of like-minded individuals, And so it seems that tonight we have a critical opportunity to decide if Greenfield is indeed a place that champions dignity and equity. This proposal to modify this ordinance in order to target a group which is already disadvantaged and vulnerable is appalling. It is discriminatory, and it's not what I expect from thinking, caring people. I know that homeless are not a protected class, so we are legally allowed to discriminate against them. But honestly, do we actually need a law to tell us not to pick on people, especially those who are less fortunate than we are? It's basic playground rules. Play nice, play fair, and shame on us for even considering this. Shame on any of us who puts aesthetics above their personal discomfort above an actual basic community structure. Do not change this ordinance until we have first taken care of the people who will be harmed by it. Thank you.
Liza Knapp.
Hello, everybody. I will provide my name and address, but before I do, I just want to point out that that very question privileges some of us in the room here who have an address to state. My name is Liza Knapp. I live at 191 Conway Street in Greenfield. I'm a pastor in the United Church of Christ. I'm with the First Church of Deerfield. I am also a member of the Interfaith Council of Franklin County, and I am a frequent worshiper at Cathedral and the Light, which worships on the Common. So some of the folks who have been staying on the Common recently are friends of mine from that church, and all of them are neighbors of mine. And as their friend and as their neighbor, I'm concerned for their needs, and their needs are the same basic needs as everyone in this room has, which is they need somewhere that is safe, that is sanitary, and that is accessible to the services that they need without a motor vehicle for many of them. As a pastor, I am called by my congregation to serve my people and my neighbor. And as town councilors, I believe you have a very similar call from the people of this town to serve your people and your neighbors. I know that the faith communities in this area have been doing what we can to be supportive. I want to call out especially the Interfaith Council and Second Congregational Church, who have been working to rapidly come up with whatever is possible to improve access to sanitation for the Commons community. And we will continue to work on solutions to be as helpful as we can be. But we cannot do this by ourselves. I know that there are ordinances under consideration to provide some assistance for churches, and I know that folks are looking to us to provide help and to provide leadership, and we will do that. We stand with the community on the Common, and we will continue to do so. We will be true to our call, but we need you, the town council, to also to be true to yours and to help in any way that you can. I would reiterate what was just said about the need to have a plan in place before you take away the only place that many of our neighbors have to simply be in the evenings and overnight.
Well, you're out. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to remind everybody here that we have a resolution we recently passed that calls for a culture of civility, and any derogatory comments or jeering that I hear, I'm going to call out every single time. And I may at some point ask the police to ask you to leave. Clapping is okay. If you don't agree with what the person said, then don't clap, but I don't want to hear any jeers and any derogatory comments. This meeting is going to be stopped right now, and I'm going to ask the police to ask you to leave. Everybody, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Can you call this meeting back to order? Call this meeting back to order. Everybody, please get in their seats. And Cindy Gotch. The Council on Aging. No more? Oh, no disability. I thought it was COA. No, okay.
I'm Cynthia Dodge, and the founder and developer of the Town of Greenfield's Commission on Disability Access. That's the CDA. And I want to emphasize that the people that are on the common are homeless. There's many, many different types of disabilities that are there. We have an obligation to not hurt them. And I've been up there day and night. I brought garbage bags up there so that they can take care of their own garbage. I brought them wipes so they can clean up, toothpaste, toothbrushes. These are the essential things that they need. I've called out in California and talked to a director of a homeless shelter, and it's called the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission. There's 4 or 5 of them in one area in Santa Barbara. It's a sanctuary state. They are inundated with illegals, refugees, and our own, including homeless veterans. It's shameful what's happening across our nation. This country, as rich as it is, we have our own homeless people we need to take care of first. And to just push them onto a piece of land that's going to flood. And every time it rains, there's an element of flooding that's there. You can't pitch a tent down there. If you go try to do it up on the hills, you're just going to roll down the hills. And you can't get the supplies back and forth. They need porta potties. They need places to shower. The basic elements is what I need. That means affordable housing. I started a new task force. It's called the Homeless and On the Edge Task Force. We've got a lot of resources already involved. We're meeting on Monday, and it's going to be every other Monday at the Salvation Army at 6 o'clock. There's one coming up this coming Monday. I've been in touch with ServiceNet. Oh gosh, I'm so tired. It's not funny. We have an obligation here. And you can't move them into a place that we don't have something set up properly. You just can't do it. It's inhumane. There's over 500,000 in 2017 of homeless people. Over 500,000. So let's step up to the plate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm very thankful that so many people have turned out to be positive for the people of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Costas Thompson.
check. Good evening, and thanks for the chance to get up and talk to you all. It's a heartbreaking situation. I don't think any of us can ignore the human element of what we're seeing in the middle of town. And I don't think that we should be forgetting about that. But what I want to focus on tonight is the use of the common in a legal sense, in the sense of the town as the entity owning and controlling it, and also in the spirit of what the town common is and represents to Greenfield. Right now we have people living on the town common. It's a semi-permanent situation, and I believe that unless acted upon by an outside force, it would transition into a permanent situation. I don't believe that that's a tenable thing for the town of Greenfield to go forward with. I don't have a solution to homelessness. I don't have recommendations to share right now about what we should do about the people, unfortunately. But I think that as it relates to the use of the common, we need to begin to set boundaries for what's acceptable and not acceptable in terms of people's conduct on the common. And I'm not singling out people who are homeless. I'm not singling out people with homes or anything like that. Simply put, the situation on the common is preventing people from enjoying the common as it was intended. And I don't think that we can continue to do that, favoring one group of people over another group of people. That's just not what this town is about, one way or the other, socioeconomics aside. It's important, I think, to set boundaries to say that having a semi-permanent living situation on the common is not something that we can really handle going forward. It wouldn't be responsible. And I think that we need to set that boundary, and I would appreciate it if the town council would do that tonight. Thank you.
Folks, please don't forget to state your address. Alyssa, then I'll order it.
Hi, Alyssa Valbona, 80 Conway Street. All my notes here. So, as far as folks camping on the common goes, I think that it can be a positive thing in that it puts the issue of homelessness that is chronic and always present in all of our faces. However, I don't think that anybody who doesn't want to use their housing situation to advocate for themselves by being exposed in that way should be forced to be exposed in that way. If folks prefer to camp elsewhere and we can find a place for them that is safe and sanitary, then that's what we should work towards as a town. But I don't support the changing of any regulations about the town common. I've worked in health and human services in Franklin County for the past 7 years, I still do, and none of those jobs have been in a housing nonprofit. Yet, I do housing nearly every day. The shelters have been full and on wait lists for years, especially in the winter, we do housing. And families, even families, this is a right to shelter state for families, get their children taken away from them because there's no space at the family inn for them. If you turn down your emergency housing situation because they're gonna send you out to New Bedford, you are not eligible to apply for emergency housing again for another year. If you get evicted from public housing, you are not eligible to be in public housing again for another year. This is a very complex issue that has been going on for a very long time. And I'm glad everybody is here and thinking about our neighbors now that they're on the common. but we cannot force people to move without a safe, sanitary place to move them to that they also want to move to. The last thing I'll say is that I also work at the Greenfield Farmers Market every Saturday. And I do see people co-mingling and using the common together. I see customers of mine at the farmers market going over and eating the breakfast sandwiches that I serve them on the common next to people who are camping. And I still see kids playing on the common. And I would suggest to anyone that if they feel like smoking is an issue, they could probably just have a conversation with that person and ask them to step away from them. As a former smoker, that's what I would do. Thank you.
Steve, you have to state your full name, not Steve the hippie.
Steve Pendel, I live at 50 James Street. I spent 10 years living on the road by my own choice. I was what we call houseless. My friends and I also created a kitchen, an industrial restaurant quality kitchen inside a school bus, and we went to freely share food in the cities. So this is my experience. I think the people on the common need a safe place. They need a place where they can be safe, where there's sanitary conditions, and there's certain requirements for what that is. The place you're proposing is a floodplain. It's already flooded. There's no trees in sight. There's no potable water. It doesn't constitute a site. Okay? I'm appalled that the town has not put a porta potty near the common for people to have 24/7. That's just pure sanitation and hygiene. You live in the woods, you learn how to do that. Okay? I, for one, would not live on the common because I don't like all the traffic and the commotion and people walking by me all the time. But people need a safe place. Homelessness is not going away. It's only going to get worse with the current administration in D.C. So I would advocate that people who have knowledge and experience about what constitutes a safe place for people to be able to camp as a community should have input into that. And those who have no knowledge about that should not tell other people what to do. Thank you.
Sarah Pinstraw.
Sarah Penstraw, 68 Crescent Street, Greenfield. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to reiterate that I urge you not to change the notion that the common is for everybody. Do not legislate that away. We wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for these courageous people putting homelessness in our faces. And I hope we can find a better space for them, a space with easier access to facilities that they need. And I urge us to take long-term steps for a better solution, more permanent solution for affordable housing. Thank you.
Richard Perry.
Hi, I'm Richard Perry. I'm one of the homeless people in this town. And there is no one that will help. The people don't, there are people that come and they show kindness. But when you are, how do I want to put this? When you are left out in the cold after you have been thrown out of your place because you were targeted, it's not right. how no one wants to help, me especially. But all of the homeless people on the common, they need help, and they need a safe place. And that's all I have to say.
Madeline Lloyd?
Hi, my name is Madeline Lloyd, and I am one of the homeless people on the common. First, I would like to cite.
Can folks hear me now? Maddie, can you speak louder?
I certainly can. I would like to cite chapter 151 and section 151-4. Posting of signs. The city of Greenfield, through its Parks Maintenance Department, will post signs conspicuously at each entrance of each municipal building and municipal lands to alert any person or persons using said buildings or lands of smoking restrictions thereon. There is none at the town common. It is not illegal to smoke on the town common. That being said, if there is anyone who does not want us to smoke, we're more than accommodating. We have coexisted with the farmers market. We have coexisted with Cathedral and White Church, which I am a member of. Now, the town was fine when we were in the woods. We were outside, we were unmined. But somewhere along the lines, we were removed from those places. And when we asked where could we go that we could be safe and we could not be removed from, the only place we were allowed to be was the town common. So now we're in your face, and you don't like it. And I'm sorry to say that, but until you can come up with a safe place for us to be, where else are we supposed to go? There's no housing available. If you're on a disability income, or you work a full-time job, minimum wage, you can't afford a one-bedroom apartment. It's not possible. I've done it for over 2 years now. I lost my house in a fire. I lost everything I owned, and because of that, DCF came up and took my child away from me and called me an incompetent mother because I could not provide for my child. Do you have any idea how heartbreaking it is? Put yourself for 1 second into my shoes. Do you think I want people driving by at 6 a.m., laying on their phone telling me to get a job? Or looking at me like for some reason I'm lesser than they are? I worked a good job. I was at my job for 10 years. I worked hard for everything I had, and in a second I lost it. And it could be any one of you up here, or any one of you behind me. So don't you dare look at me and judge me like I'm not a thing that's worth anything. We all deserve equal opportunities, and we all deserve housing. Thank you.
David Gleason?
Post. So.
I'm David Gleason. I live at 165 Chapman Street, right around the corner. I've lived in Greenfield my entire life. I'm really surprised that this situation has evolved or how long it's been, and that's taken as long as the town almost reacts. Homelessness is a complex issue that I don't have a solution for. There's a lot of issues out there. But I work nights at Yankee Candle. I come home in the morning, and the past couple of weeks I've been stopping and kind of photo documenting on my phone the evolution of the tents and the amount of people and the amount of trash and just buildup of humans and the byproducts that humans use and humans make, whether it's food waste or human waste or the result of people. And my question is, council, is as somebody who lives in this town, how can I now enjoy the common as somebody who doesn't sleep there? I can no longer really go up and enjoy it. It's become very disconcerting as somebody who lives here. And again, I don't really have a solution. It was just more to express my concern, but it's a bad situation, all around, and I think everybody agrees on that. But, moving these people or trying to find a temporary solution, that's a stopgap, you know what I mean? That's a catch-all, you know what I mean? There's, I don't know what to say, there's no real, Isaac proposed a solution, and at least he proposed something, but that's not permanent, that's not, like other people have said, flooding, that's a bad, so I don't know what the town can do, but obviously a lot of people are here because they're concerned, so you guys are gonna try to figure something out, right? I hope the town's gonna try to work with you. I'm happy that so many people are here, but I just wanted to express my concern, as I come home every morning to the town, I see it over the past 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5+ weeks. That was what was just in the beginning 2 tents, and now has evolved. And I'm not a genius, I'm just a hardworking guy. Rick and Alice, Isaac, I've been in school. If I lost my job and was out of work for 6 to 8 months, I would be in the same situation as many of these people. Like most Americans, I live paycheck to paycheck or month to month. I could be homeless myself in 2 to 5 years. And 4 or 5 years ago, I transitioned out of a job. I fell behind my property taxes. I almost lost my house to the town. I could have been homeless 5 years ago. You know what I mean? I might have come to not have an address to write on if my life had taken a different turn, but I got lucky. So, I don't know. Good luck with everything. That's all I want to say.
Peter Pavoni.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council for letting me speak tonight. I'm not going to beat a dead horse about everybody.
Could you please say
Yes,
that?
my name is Peter Pavoni. I live at 3A Huntington Circle, Greenfield, Mass. I'm going to make this short and sweet. I've been listening to what everybody says, and there's no sense in me getting up here repeating everything that what they say, because you listen to both sides of it. I came up with some idea, and I'm going to bring it up to you guys in the council and everybody here, just to think of it outside the box. We have 2 problems in the city. Once I take a walk up and down Main Street, we see all the vacant buildings down here, the vacant property. And we have the idea of the people on the common that are homeless, and a lot of them are very educated. I was thinking that if some of the owners of the empty buildings in the town would work with the services, offer them a place to stay. It's not a permanent solution, but it's a safer place to stay. I understand there will probably be a fire liability and a lot of other things too. But come on guys, around these surrounding towns, how about the school modular buildings that are probably all around the towns that haven't been used, if there's any available? Couldn't we find a piece of land to put it there so where these people could try to get their lives back together and offer them a sense of hope for gaining their pride and their dignity back again by doing some work with this stuff? I mean, that's my proposal. An empty building, if the owners of the buildings are willing to work with the city for a while and all these agencies, I believe it would be a solution for some time to get a lot of these people on the common a chance to get their dignity back. If they had their dignity back, they probably would be more motivated to go to work, and we probably wouldn't have it as bad as we do now. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Lance Smith.
I'm Lance Smith, and I finally made it to 51 High Street, apartment 103, at age 71, having the advantage to have subsidized low-income senior housing. You know, programs that were created when I was growing up, and this country had a generally generous spirit. I've worked as an executive assistant to a county executive in Wisconsin. I've been homeless. And I would encourage the council, rather than to use the encouragement, i.e. the club, of putting a finite date before there is a workable solution, not to do so. To turn back the history of a town common is immoral, and it's not in the American spirit. You know, that is our common land. And to restrict in this situation, and I don't think of any, I have been up to the Commons the last couple of days. There's no one who wants to be there as their housing. This is not a semi-permanent situation. This is a desperate act. And if, you know, I was tempted, I wrote a verse to Bob Dylan's, you know, times they are changing. Am I going to do this? Yeah, why not? Come, kind folks of Greenfield, let's now make a stand. It's our neighbors who are homeless, and we have the land. We hold it in common, don't let them be banned from our hearts or the heart of the city. Let us all be good neighbors and let's make a plan. And let's be the time that is changing.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Calderwood?
Mary Ellen Calderwood, 82 Sanderson Street, Coordinating Committee, Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution. I've never seen anything like this. I have never been at a meeting where folks who feel so disenfranchised, so unwelcomed, came to be heard. So I commend them. I want to remind everybody. I want to remind everybody that they may not have the literal address. They have the same zip code, and the world is not flat. So if we push them off to the edge, they're not going to go. There's no edge to go off of. They will be here because they need to be here. The common is theirs. The common is mine. There's no reason to exclude them from living in that common space until such time as something is permanent and something whereby they have dignity to live with. I think some of the comments that I have seen on social media, I have to say, are abhorrent, and I'm surprised that they are so bad. I am fortunate enough to have a home, to have a job, a good job, but there was a time in my life where that wasn't the case. So we are all one paycheck away from where you are, and I would welcome the town council to remember that, because each one of us, I can look at each one of us and say we're all sort of working class folk. And so we have to remember that these are our neighbors, and that there is also the potential for a child there. I saw a child there on a scooter who fell off a scooter, and that child's community, that child's family dusted him off and picked him up. These folks have created their own community there, and they are part of us. I welcome them, and anything that I can do to help, I'm here to do that as well.
Stephen Smolo. Stephen Smolo? Wendy Goodman.
Green, 529 Green River Road. Penny, I'm so glad to see you. Just want to acknowledge that. Thank you. And thank you all for holding this meeting. I appreciate what I've been hearing, and I'm moved by how many people have shown up. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact on this, as I'm kind of known to do. But first I want to just bring to light, I think that this is crisis. I think we can all kind of look at that. And in the Chinese tradition, the way they write their language, some of you may know this, is they put glyphs together. So like they'll have a glyph, a picture for a tree, and that means tree. And they'll put 3 trees together, and that means forest. So the way they talk about crisis, the way they write crisis, is they take the glyph for danger and the glyph for hidden opportunity, and they put those together. And so while we're clearly in a dangerous position, I really hope, and I think what we've heard from people today is let's look for the opportunity. And a lot has been exposed about what we're dealing with. So I'm going to read this because when I just go up and talk, I don't say what I want to say. So first, I want to be clear that I do not support the idea of changing laws, ordinance to not allow camping on the green. I'm not here to offer solutions. Hopefully that's what's going to follow this meeting. That we've heard some things, and there are lots of solutions out there. People are working with this problem. So I'm not here to talk about solutions, just to push us towards looking for it. What's happening on the green is exposing a huge problem that we all have in our towns and our cities. A problem that people cannot afford housing and so are without homes, even people who are working. Greenfield dealt with the jungle last year by cleaning it up. But what happened to all those folks? Are we going to do the same thing here and now? Have we not learned that it might resolve an immediate problem but clearly does not impact the long-term issue? Greenfield, and I'm not saying that we're unique in this, has a tendency to look for a quick fix to the presenting problem without looking deeper at the cause of affecting that. Case in point, people camping on the green, let's outlaw. Other examples, mayor is lacking in interpersonal skills, get him to resign. Complaints at the pumping station, shut it down. We are quick to seek a quick fix to the presenting problem. A more durable solution would occur if cause was sought. The mayor's style is off-putting. Get him coaching. The pumping station is problematic. Talk to people. Change behavior. They did it in Colby on Green River Road. It's been transformed. There's no garbage on Green River Road anymore because the cops are out there talking to people. They have 5 miles of road that they're patrolling. We have a pumping station. We shut it down. They deal with the situation. We can learn from them. Outlawing camping on the green would be just another way that Greenfield reacts instead of thoughtfully co-create solutions. We're better than that. I appeal to you not to pass such an ordinance, but rather to continue meeting and include the people that are living on the green, the folks that are showing up here, because they know what they need, and together we can find a solution. Thank you.
Peter Sheridan. Oh, never mind. Susan Maloney. Susan Maloney. Okay, Claire Higgins.
I guess it's time for the out of towners.
Yeah.
Just check. You have another sheet.
Oh, okay. It's okay. You can be down. It's okay. You're already up there.
My name's Claire Higgins. I live in Northampton. I'm here in my capacity as the Executive Director of Community Action Pioneer Valley with the Anti-Poverty Agency for Hampshire, Franklin counties. And so we've been in meetings about this, and we've been talking about how to be a part of the solution. So first I'd like to say,
Can you speak up a little bit?
the first thing I would say is that if you leave here with everybody mad at you, you've probably done your job. Because this is not a very easy problem to solve. right? Everybody has some really heartfelt, deep concerns about what's going on the common. Those who may want it cleared immediately have heartfelt, deep concerns because they see that as an infringement on their land that is held in common. The people who are camping there don't have any place that they perceive they can go. And the community at large understands that they feels a responsibility, many people, to find them a place to go. I understand why you have this in front of you. I understand that the mayor wants to have a deadline, and I think there's a value in a deadline. I think this is not a good deadline. This isn't enough time to pull everything together that needs to be pulled together. So, that being said, I don't think the community necessarily has to say that camping on the common is okay. It just needs to say, we're going to figure out how to have a place for people to be, and we're going to include them in the conversation. That's why I say probably everybody will be bad. Okay, but a couple things I've heard people say, well, you know, this is bad for public safety, this is, you know, going to increase the crime. In fact, the people who are most at risk are the homeless themselves. When you look at the statistics, themselves are often the victims of crime rather than being the perpetrators of crime. So I think that's important to just do some fact checking. It's not easy to convert a church basement into a shelter of any sort because the law requires you to have sprinklers, which is a change from when I first got engaged in this kind of work many years ago. That being said, I don't agree that Greenfield looks for the easy answers. I think Greenfield tries to figure out complex problems, and this is right up your alley. This is a community that's worked collaboratively throughout the county to reduce youth substance abuse more than any other county in the state. You should be proud of that. You don't look for easy answers. This is a hard problem, and it's a solvable problem. Community action is here to help in whatever way we can and to put our shoulder together with everybody else and try to solve the problem. But finally, this is a problem that is national. Across the entire country, there's no county in the United States that you can afford the rent on a minimum wage. In the entire country. The waiting list for the tax credits that help pay to build affordable housing is years long. It's going to take a lot of shoulders and a lot of pushing to move this. Thank you.
Melissa Osborne.
Hello, my name is Melissa Osborne. I used to live on Devon Street in Greenfield, and now I'm in subsidized housing in Turner's Falls with my 2 children. And if it were not for subsidized housing, there's no way I could have graduated nursing school at GCC and have been the commencement speaker. So I just want to say there's a lot of value for subsidized housing. That's not a Section 8 program, that's just vouchers that are a lot faster to get people into. So I just want to say that the decision made around this homeless situation in Greenfield at this point is going to set a precedence and a tone about how the town really feels about its most vulnerable community members. This point is for the town and its service agencies at an interesting tipping point where opportunity could be created out of this difficult situation. I've been humbled to meet and get to know and become friends with many people on the town common as I wait to start my nursing job on Monday and was in between a job. I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to help support any way that I can. You may have seen there was a literature review that I tried to hand out about best practices for encampments around the country and alternatives that could be helpful. But ultimately, most of this has just come from talking to people around town in different offices and the people on the common. The folks on the common have been giving, trusting, kind, and humble. And some of these people became homeless as late adults because they were injured or their company closed or their house burned down. Even with a full-time, this is much more about getting a job. I've heard this kind of floating around the room. It's much more about, more than just about getting a job or holding a resource fair. I'm going to tell you as someone who's on DTA and on food stamps and child care vouchers in subsidized housing, that this is a very complicated navigation system. You have to really be strategic and have a lot of family support, even with all of the supports. It's not about getting a job. A lot of people are mentally ill, on disability, needing more support than a tent on the common. That being said, regarding the ordinance to remove folks from the common, I don't believe that from a public health and safety standpoint, Wedgewood Gardens is appropriate because of a few different reasons. That it's a floodplain with no shade, farther from town services and community meals. We are looking at a hurricane season in the era of unprecedented extreme weather events, and the idea of putting porta potties and tents in an area that floods regularly sounds like a public health disaster. Not to mention some people have diabetes in that encampment, and having them walk continually in a wetland is asking for a lifetime of emergency room visits or in surgeries in our local hospital. If we need to have an immediately move folks from the town common, one thing that I'm going to propose would be to use the energy park. It already has a designated porta potty recently installed for the homeless to use. It is easy to walk to community meals, service agency appointments, and to purchase food. It has little to no risk of being flooded, and community agents can easily access this location for outreach. One of the hardest things about helping someone reach sustainable housing is the difficulty of case managing individuals who are continually being moved around. Some may not have phones to follow up with. This situation that we have is 20 vulnerable people on the town common waving to us to help them. And if we provide a short-term solution and work with community agencies on a longer-term solution, this could be the opportunity to provide for these people. Franklin County is known as a model for a resource network, and I urge you to make your choices with a humanitarian and social service and public health viewpoint, rather than having any decision clouded by fear or stigma.
Carol? I can't read the last name.
Hi, Carol Diamond. 5 Harris Court, Greenfield, Mass. I'm too close now. I left my note at home because of the weather, and I managed to get here to see a bunch of people. I didn't expect the format, and I never saw the inside of this place. I had an idea that ended up on a telephone message to the chief of police, which had to do with not Wedgewood Garden, little place that was rejected as a dog park for being so marshy. Well, this has been something I was watching get built, and that's a bank across the street from the common, the old First National Bank. There's a big clock on the top, and I watched all the buckets of all the debris come out, and everybody put it back in there looking for wrenches. So I left a message with the police chief, and I had not left my phone number with him. And I thought, well, this building is unused still at this present time. And there would be something that's eventually going to go in there. And I don't know who, I left a message saying, I wonder who owns the building, and has anyone come up with that or forward that for an idea yet? And I just didn't know that this arrangement was all together and everyone was so well planned with plans and ideas and sharing. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I made it over. But I don't see any signs or any, notice what's going on with that building. And I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. So I'm going to forward a note to you and the mayor and the police chief for what I was thinking of. I thought that would be a high rent. Not $10,000 a month, but that would be a community sharing proposition, good one. Thank you.
Annie?
I'd like to just start with just a moment. I'm Annie Yassett. I live at 21 Leonard Street in Greenfield around the corner. Just for a moment, one couple breaths of silence so we can all partake of the oneness that we all are. So many things to be said. I have my sign here. Give us your tired, poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. I'm sorry to actually hear this whole thing about 2 or more on the common, what we can do with our common. I'm not really for that. To me, the common is a common thread for each and every one of us to express who we are as a wonderful community that we are. Now, I know for a fact that Utah figured out that it costs $50,000 a person to take care of a homeless person. So they figured that out and they said, well, 50 grand for one person, we're going to use that to home the homeless. You know, I've mentioned and I said, you could quote me as this, that there is not a rug big enough to sweep this under. It is not a joke. People in the world, people in Syria, homeless, hundreds of thousands, women, children, people that come to our border, the Mexicans, and then we have our own people here. I go to the continent. I brought coffee, pot of coffee, cornbread. It was Saturday, so some of the people gave peaches and things like that. It's a problem, and we need to step up to the plate and figure out what we're going to do. It isn't a them and us. It's us together. It's an us together. And I guess I said that. The rug, the thing about the common thread about people together. Not a rug big enough. You know, I'm grateful. I have somebody I put a little pickup for them to stay. That's what I could do. I don't have the answers. It's way too big for me. But I know if we look inside, you know, as who we are as human beings, with our heart and our soul, I know that we can, given this opportunity, change something for our community. And I thank you very much for considering everything. Penny also, I'm so happy to see you back. I haven't been here when you've been here again, so thank you. Thank you for the town. And look into your hearts. Number 2 on the list is love thy neighbor as thyself. I know Greenfield, I know that we can do this. I know we can.
John Unitas?
Hello, folks. John Unitas, 83 Shelburne Road, Greenfield. 58 years old. Lived here all my life. Grew up here. Born here. Not sure where to start with all this. 50 grand a year. I've never made that in 45 years of working, so I'm not sure what to say. But otherwise, I hold a job and I have a small mortgage and a house and a little bit of piece of property and a car. It can be done. A couple years ago, I saw my buddy from junior high school, my best friend. I'm not going to name his name, but on the streets in Greenfield. And I said, dude, listen to me. Get a job. Stop being on the streets. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. It doesn't take that much to do. Get a job. It's not bad. I'm going to stop with that because he died. Oh, funny? Really?
Folks,
Really? That's not funny. It's not funny. He died on the streets in Greenfield. My biggest thing, I'm 83 Shelburne Road. I'm right across from Wedgwood Gardens, which every year I see the festivals come in and they park their cars right across my backyard behind the river, which is in my backyard. People are defecating, urinating, and taking baths in the river. My backyard. If we do this whole thing, and I'm not heartless. yes, everybody needs a place to go, but if you propose this on the Wedgewood Gardens site, please do me a favor and put up some kind of a barrier that they can't bathe in my backyard. That's all I'm saying. I'm not heartless. I think it would be wonderful to have a place for them to go. But, again, I'm not rich. I go from week to week. I have a job. I have a small mortgage. I'm so happy with my life. It can be done by everyone. Just get out there and do it. That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much.
Susan Orgett.
Susan Orgett, 45 Forest Avenue, Greenfield. High opinion, by the way. There's been a lot of very heartfelt statements here. I'm not going to repeat that. I want to talk about public resources. We seem to have some, according to the newspaper, and the mayor said that we have some. I would like us to think about those resources as being ways that we can permanently assist people on the common and not have those resources be used for a temporary solution that inevitably we're going to have to revisit, because Wedgewood Garden land is going to flood. Whether it floods now or it floods next spring, it's going to flood. And I'm worried about people living through the winter there. I'm worried about how we're going to be able to support people. So for instance, if the issue on church basements as a partial solution is that they don't have sprinklers, can we use public funds to put sprinklers in there? So that's for the time being. I liked the solution that Hazel mentioned about some place where folks could live to be able to gather some money together so they could pay first and last month's rent. I don't know if CDBG money can be used to pay first and last month's rent, but if that's the barrier that people are experiencing, perhaps that's a way. I think we have to look at what the individual issues are for the people on the common and figure out how we can use public resources to solve the problem as opposed to come up with grandiose ideas. But the idea of being able to do this in a way which deals with the real issue and deals with it on at least in an attempt to make it a more permanent solution and not be a temporary solution of another tent city in another spot seems to me to be a much more viable way to use the resources that we have, whether they be public resources or whether they be resources that we all contribute to in addition to what we have as a town. Thank you.
S.M. Kinney.
My name is Shannon Kinney. I live at 142 School Street, and I'm here to ask you to please not change the accessibility of the common. At the moment, it is the safest place for the campers to be. Wedgewood Gardens is going to flood, and it was a disgraceful thing to even suggest putting them there. It sounds like you want to put them there so they're out of sight. On the common, it's in everybody's face, and it's a problem. Yes, there are services, but a lot of these services, they don't have the money. Budget cuts have happened. There's services, but there's no means to apply them. Do you know what I mean? The common is a safe place. There are cameras everywhere. Some of the things I've read online, the hostility towards people who are living on the common, I fear for their safety. At least in the common, they're right down in the middle of town, and somebody's watching. It's really a mess. Thank you.
Nathan Provost.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Provost.
Could you state your address, please?
Oh, yes, sorry. 32 Linwood Street, Greenfield. Now, as a student of Greenfield High School, I've been most involved in the pursuit of philosophy. And in this pursuit, I have looked towards the situation of the common and spoken to some people there. What I've seen has greatly troubled me down there. I've seen a young man not too older than I struggling. I have seen a former fellow student of the high school there. And I encourage all people in here as sort of an interlude between directional thinking here to consider the value of rational analysis in this. And I would just like to state that there is no singular person or group of people in this room that are the enemies here. I would like to say that the true enemies in this situation are vitriol and arrogance. And I believe that if we do not keep those things in check and pursue rational thinking and rational analysis of the situation, that this could turn out very poorly for all people. I am hopeful to see positive legislature and positive action and forward ideas brought forth here. I hope for diversity of ideas and solutions to continue. I do persuade all people in here to look at the situation and not attack people's ideas if they're different from yours. And this entire discourse, I suppose, was solidified in the events prior in this meeting. But I would like to say that most often, most importantly, I hope for a legal solution on this, even though it does seem impossible. But I would warn both the people in this room and the council members that, in the words of the motto of the University of Pennsylvania, laws without morals are useless. Thank you very much.
Dylan? Oh, I'm sorry, Douglas. Douglas Wright.
Good evening, Douglas White, Noir, 237 Conway Street. So, folks, obviously we have a serious problem in front of us that we're facing. I lived in Greenfield for 7 years homelessly out of the back of my truck, so I know all about homelessness and how frightening and difficult and scary it is. But I'm absolutely convinced that we have a lot of good-hearted people and capable people and creative people, spiritual people, loving people in Greenfield. We can solve this problem. All we have to do is pull together as one, and we can do it. And I would suggest two things. I would think seriously about setting up 2 hotlines, okay? One for creative ideas and solutions that people can do. For instance, maybe someone has an extra room or an attic space or something like that, that they would be willing to put up 1 or 2 people. That's just one possibility, but I think if we have a hotline, you're going to be surprised at some great ideas that are going to come in. And the second thing is we need funding, so let's set up a funding hotline. Here's my 20, I'm in. Okay, let's do it. We can do this, folks.
Thank you. Rachel Gordon.
He really left us 20. I'm going to leave it here. Good evening.
We can't take gifts, so.
My name is Reil Gordon. I live at 10 Eastern Avenue in Greenfield. I'm a homeowner in Greenfield. I am so grateful to our neighbors on the Common for persevering through life circumstances that are more difficult than I can possibly imagine. I'm so grateful to them for having the courage to make us all a little uncomfortable and having to face this complex issue that is not new in Greenfield and is not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm grateful to you, the council, for taking this up. And I'm struck at how much we talk about the homeless people on the common and how little we talk to them or listen to them. So I'm very grateful to those who are here tonight speaking to us. I'm grateful to those who have been going to the common. I must admit that I have not been one of those. I've been busy with other things, but that's no excuse. And I think that we need to do a lot more listening to their needs and wants. I oppose changing the use of the common or moving people against their will, moving them to a floodplain, or moving them anywhere without a good long-term plan in place. I'm also wary about this language of crisis. It is not a crisis that we now have to acknowledge homelessness in Greenfield. That is not the crisis we are facing. It may be a crisis that people are living in unsanitary situations, that they don't have the resources to confront. That is a crisis. It is a crisis that we have a total lack of affordable housing and structural poverty issues that keep people from being able to improve their own situations and address their needs. Those are crises, but the fact that there are people camping on the common in Greenfield is not a crisis. So the one idea I have, I'm going to take Claire Higgins' challenge and make everybody angry with this idea, but as a homeowner in Greenfield who does, luckily I'm able to pay my small mortgage, but I do actually earn below the poverty line at this time, I propose raising my property taxes. It's crazy, right? It's a crazy idea. This is a council that we have seen in past years constantly trying to cut, to make voters a little happier, I think, at certain times, that it might behoove people, but that doesn't help us provide needed services to people in this town. And I would be more than happy to pay a few dollars more every year so that everyone in this community can help get their can have help getting their needs met. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marian Bullock. I live at 179 Hope Street in Greenfield. I moved to Greenfield because my subsidized housing voucher came up, and I lived in subsidized housing for 3 years until I was able to use a low-income home buyer program and buy my home on Hope Street, which I've lived in for the last 9 years. I actually want to second, as a low-income person in Greenfield, I want to second what Rachel said. I'd be happy to pay more property taxes, knowing that there was adequate housing that's affordable for people in Greenfield. I also want to say that I oppose the ordinance. I've heard many people say that they don't have a solution for the homeless people in Greenfield. And my question to them is, what do you think criminalizing homeless people will do? I work at 90 Federal Street. I'm an employee of Community Action. I work at the Family Center. I'm right downtown. I often see police doing social work in the streets. I've been pretty impressed with the Greenfield police, especially throughout this situation. And I think that asking the police to arrest people is not the right thing. Asking the sheriff to incarcerate people and asking the state to foot a bill of up to $60,000 a year for a vagrancy charge isn't smart, and it doesn't make sense. At my job at Community Action, I often reiterate the words that we don't do housing, just like Alyssa said. We don't do housing in the department that I'm in, but we do housing every single day. I have sat with moms while they make the call to DCF. I drove moms to the office while they drop their children off to be placed in foster care because they can't get housing that night and they don't have anywhere to go. I've dropped moms off in public places last winter when it was negative 10 degrees out, and they left their children that they were breastfeeding somewhere else so that they could spend the night outside because they couldn't double up in subsidized housing. I've worked with people as they fought to get their kids back and didn't succeed in, and they've been separated for 2 years at a time because they can't get in. As Alyssa said, the way that the housing system works in Massachusetts, is that if you apply for emergency assistance and EA housing application through DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and you turn down your placement, which can be anywhere in the state, you're not eligible to reapply. If you don't have children, or you're not displaced by a natural disaster, or you're not in a domestic violence situation, you're not a priority on the list. So men come into our office every day that are single men that don't have children, and there's nothing that we can do for them. Before Massachusetts moved people out of the hotels, the state was spending over $3,000 a month to house one family in one-room hotels without adequate refrigeration or usage of stoves. I also want to just say that we really don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. An easy Google search can tell you that there's best practices from other areas in the country. And I think that
you off, but the 3 minutes.
Okay. I also just want to. I also just want to say that I do think that this is an opportunity, that Greenfield's on the cutting edge of the opioid epidemic, and that is an opportunity for us, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
That is everybody who has signed up for public comment. Does anybody else wish to make a public comment who hasn't? Well, Dorothy, and Maria, and then Dorothy. Yes, yeah. Just come on up and the next person before you is done.
Maria Birchman in Garfield Street, Greenfield. My mama always told me, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. But I've always, on this problem, I don't have a solution. So I'm coming to you with offering you resources. I have been working with the homeless for over a year and a half, providing meals on Sundays, helping Cathedral and the like. But I'm also, I have some resources that was given to me by MJ, and I'd like to invite anyone that wants to pick up, the resources on the way out. Is there by the balloons. And also, whoever left this one right here on the bottom of the resources, there's a place where you can give that to. So thank you for all the work, and I'd be happy to help you, the council, work on some of the solutions. Thank you.
Dorothy McIver, 88 Columbus Ave. Welcome back, Penny. It's good to see you. So first of all, I also want to share my opinion that I don't think it's a good idea to change the ordinance on the commons. The commons are for everybody. Certainly it's not an ideal situation, but I don't think that people should be moved to something else temporary at this point, certainly not to Woodward Gardens. I think that we need to be working on permanent solutions, and I know that's going to be very difficult in this time. I spent many years working with low-income people, also not in housing. I worked in childcare, but a lot of my time was spent with people around housing issues. And housing affected people's ability to get childcare. If you didn't have an address and you had a child and you were working, you had to get someone to say you were staying with them, and that wasn't easy. And if you couldn't do it, you lost your childcare. I've had people living in tents and in situations where they couldn't document that. So, and also, this was a number of years ago now, the cost of living has gone way up. Wages haven't gone that way up. We can't expect people are going to get jobs that they can pay for housing when the minimum wage is the way it is. We have to have a living wage. People have to be able to make a living in order to pay for housing. So I'm all for any kind of creative solutions that we can work on around this situation that move from a temporary situation into the next steps, certainly before winter. And I know there's a lot of empty spaces in town. I don't know what it's going to take, or I know some are empty because landlords want too much money. But it seems like if we work together, there's going to be a way of finding some situations that are outside of the box that can make people comfortable and safe for the winter, and be helping them move in the direction of where they can be sustainable and be able to have a place that they can call their own. And I wish we could do something about the tiny living situation. tiny houses that are legal in other states and how we might be able to change some ordinances and some laws around that so that people can have a place that's their own, that's not going to cost an arm and a leg, and that we won't have the same homeless situation that we have now. But I think it's been a good thing to have this come to the forefront and to have people in the center of town and to bring this to our attention, because it's kind of been a hidden thing that's out of sight, out of mind. And that having people in the common, I think, has been good. It's not the best situation for them. I'd like to see the sanitation worked out right away, but I think that it's our common, we're all there together, and I think that we can do the best that we can for everybody in our community, and I know that we can do this. And I appreciate all the time and energy that you're all putting into this as well. So I just hope that we can move on from here and be creative and all of us work together. Thank you.
My name is Tom Kendrick III. My address is 60 Wells Street, Greenfield. That's the shelter. As of today, I've been staying there for 58 days. I have a job, and I've had a job. It's taken me 5 years to get to where I am right now. 58 days at the shelter, a job, and filling out applications for housing. I'm what they call chronically homeless, with mental health and addiction issues, because that comes with the territory. It's very, very difficult, especially when the rent of a one-bedroom apartment is $1,000. It's crazy. I don't want to hear, get a job. I'm sick of it. I've worked my entire life. My entire life. I'm 30 years old. It's really, really tough out there. It is. Have you ever seen a Walmart go up in a town? You know how they do it? They plan, then they find a spot. Do you ever see the Walmart go up like that? But we can't find a place for people. Really? You can't take an issue like this, and this isn't an issue, but you can't take something like this and just put it on the back burner and say, well, I don't want to look at it. It's going to go away eventually. It's not going to go away. Trust me, I know. I lived it. Do you know what it feels like to stand on the street with all of your belongings, your family, with a job, money in your pocket, and thinking to yourself, I have no idea where to go? Do you know what that feels like? That's one of the most devastating things that a human being can endure. Seriously. Raise your hand if you have ever dealt with mental health issues, addiction issues. Raise your hand if you've ever struggled with rent, with money. Have you ever struggled with food, hunger, being cold? I lived under a bridge in Greenfield, Massachusetts, in one of the worst winters in Massachusetts history. I was jaundiced. On July 28th, I reached a year clean. I never thought that I would ever say those words, that I have a year clean. I never ever thought. It's taken me 5, 6, almost 5.5 years to get to where I am. This needs to be done. This can't be like, you know what feels weird to me? That we're actually talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about it. It's 2018, guys, you know? I think we really should just get together and get it done. You know how many abandoned buildings are in this town? Seriously, literally countless. Countless. And we want to put people where it's going to flood? Serious? Unreal. Doesn't make any sense. And when you think, when you hear that, when you hear that that's a part of that's the solution, it's like you're not even trying. My time is up, but I just want to say that I love you very much, Maddie, and I love you, Bobby. You guys are my family, and I'm going to fight for everybody because I was there and I'm there now. I love you all.
My name is Travis Drury. I live at 74 High Street.
Street in Greenfield. A lot of people have already expressed my feelings of how we need to be compassionate towards the people living on the common. So I want to point out something that no one has really said yet, that I am against changing the ordinance related to the town common, even aside from the issues related to people living there, because I grew up in Ohio and we didn't have anything like a town common, that, you know, an open space that was free and open to everybody anytime. And since I've lived here, you know, it's such a cool idea to me. And if we change this, you know, people will not be allowed on the common between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And if they are on the common during those times, they are subject to arrest and a fine not to exceed $200. And that doesn't make sense to me, that I could go to a concert at Hawks and Reed, walk across the common to go home and be arrested and fined $200. It's 10:05 p.m. You know, that doesn't make any sense to me. Or if I want to go for a morning jog at 5:30 in the morning and I cut through the town common, I shouldn't be arrested and fined $200 for that. So even aside from any issues related to people living in the common, I'm against changing the ordinance related to the town common. Thank you.
Can I speak? I'm not from Greenfield.
State your name and address.
Yes, I'm Kate Stevens, and I live in Charlemont, 399 West Oxbow Road, but I am on the Franklin County Interfaith Council. And I just want to say that the Interfaith Council had a meeting and said we would be happy to be a fiscal agent for any efforts that were made to raise funds for this, you know, our community on the common. And we made a commitment ourselves to take money out of a housing assistance fund of $1,000. And one of the very first tasks we were charged with was to find a porta potty. I never thought that this was going to be my work in the world, was to find a porta potty. And to find a place that would let us have a porta potty was horrifying. We couldn't have it at the town hall, although they had one there for construction. And, you know, so there is a porta potty down in Energy Park, and I don't know how many of you have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom and have to walk for 8 blocks to get there. So I feel like if we don't come out of this place with at least a decision to put a porta potty within a block or so of the common, it's embarrassing. There's got to be something else.
I live at 258 Chapman Street in Greenfield. I work for a nonprofit that does various things for our community. I believe this is a bigger problem than the average person is aware of. There is no simple solution. Reasonable housing is needed, living wages are needed, mental health services are required, job training. None of those are simple solutions. With that said, the town has limited resources. I really do believe we need to contact our state representatives, our legislators, and ask them to help with this solution. Ask them to help with these resources that are needed, not just the homelessness situation that we're dealing with in the common. While working at the nonprofit, the Department of Housing and Community Development has not increased the single shelter funding for years. For years! You cannot pass this off onto the nonprofits. They don't have any additional funding. More funding is needed in order to additionally help the people that are there. Not too long ago, our hotels were used as shelters for families. And I was happy that these families had a place to go. My kids went to school with these homeless children at Newton. It's heartbreaking to hear the dilemmas that these children had to deal with. Those are not solutions. And now we have an eyesore off of 91. There's eyesores downtown with empty storefronts. And I agree with people who say that the common is an eyesore. It does not bring people to Greenfield to increase your property value. But what will bring people to Greenfield to increase our property value is the people who want to support these people and find solutions and be a part of the solution that we are dealing with. Not just the homelessness, the mental health issues that come along with it. It's not an easy solution to deal with. And my one suggestion that I can offer would be to create a board, a committee of community resources from people in the community, not just nonprofit solutions. There are tons of people here tonight, more than you guys anticipated, because I think you might have had a bigger room if you had, that want to help out, that are looking to support. And maybe they won't show up, but they want to hear what the board has said. So share your information on your meeting minutes in a local place and make sure the newspaper's aware of it. Make sure they know when the meetings are happening. Thank you.
David Levin, 4 Fairview Terrace, Greenfield. I've seen some of you here ticking on your pieces of paper, and I want to applaud you. I don't know that I can be silent for as long as you all have, and I recognize that this circumstance is for you to hear us. And I want to say thank you. You're elected officials. I don't want to be in your position. I think we picked the right people, the smart people, and in that vein, I hope the tick mark can be on the other side, that I think you guys and women have the right choice to make. I think the person, whoever it was that came up with the idea of making the changes and the location as a possibility, was smart to elicit the conversation that has been brought about by it. I'd be appalled to think that that was really the solution that a well-thought-out plan would bring forward, but I still will applaud that intelligence that merited this level of interaction and community involvement. We really got a lot of us here. I would even support it if we had the chance to, maybe the common might be closed from 12 to 12:15 a.m. for a very short period of time for the trash to be empty. That might work. Or that the address of the alternate location be different than the proposed place. But it's all general comment, and you're here to listen to that and to make the appropriate, intelligent decision. I want to say thank you for your efforts and for what you'll have to go through to help make us happier, as well as those that need your assistance all around. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Push anything?
No, I think you're all set.
I'm Warren, I'm homeless in Greenfield. It's not about, I could say a lot of things, but I'm just going to say a few words. It's not about what's seen, it's about what's done. And it's that simple. It's about what's acted upon. The simpler it's done, the more successful it will be. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public comment, and I'm just going to thank this entire community for coming out. Your ideas and input is really extremely valuable. Thank you to our neighbors in the common. You've shown a lot of bravery, and your input is really extremely valuable. I know this isn't easy to feel like you're in a fishbowl all the time. And also to everybody here, our entire community in Franklin County, we are a leader among communities, and we come together. We don't all have the same opinion, but we're all here and really proud to be a part of this community. So thank you all. And don't forget your $20 on the way out. You can give it to Maria Birch. So now I'm going to call this part of the meeting that the public comment is closed, so it's not a back and forth. It's going to be the councilors and the mayor talking amongst ourselves. Of course, folks are welcome to stay and listen. And so with that, I'm going to ask the mayor to please come up, and I'm sure councilors have questions. And I thought you were taking the 20.
Not that desperate. Put it out there to tempt everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. So, Mayor Martin, could you talk about, truth be told, it was Mayor Martin who called for this meeting, so you can't give the council the credit for that. So, Mayor Martin, could you talk about your proposal and your ideas, and I know that there are going to some questions.
Sure. Obviously, we've all seen the tent on the common when it began about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it seemed to accelerate in the last 10 days, 14 days. So seeing that acceleration, we plan, and not just saying myself, but we plan to meet to discuss what the options are on the property and how we can help. We initially came up with a preliminary plan of putting out a resource fair to make sure that everyone on the common had access to the education, the services, the knowledge of what might be available. We did that with mostly in-house, but a lot of support from the agencies who are involved in programs and services and housing expertise. Then we followed that up with a roundtable more recently this past Tuesday with the housing and the nonprofits that are engaged in working with the homeless and their clients. And from that meeting, actually prior to the resource fair, we had provided 2 people to the network when they had their initial meetings so that we could be involved. There was, as you know, no opportunity for the executive to act because of the exception in the chapter 356, I believe it is, because that exclusively exempts the town common and conservation lands. So we've come up with, we've had other couple meetings within the town departments, working with, using some advice and from the community action and servicemen and others. And we've come up with a plan. So to get it started, I had to call a meeting. I thought it was more critical than that we do it now rather than wait until your regular meeting on the 15th. And I thought if we could single issue one meeting, then we could maybe get a lot accomplished. It's great, so many people came out, a number of opinions and ideas and thoughts. Some of them are just right on, they come to the same conclusions we have. So we've broken it down. I want to also, before I speak to it, from Melissa Osborne. She sent me that literary search on homelessness and what the best practices were across the country in a couple of different areas. And Tim Najadlik, who leads our Veteran Service Officer, who leads our Resource and Referral Center, he provided some very relevant information on the housing problems, very, very similar, if not exactly the same as Greenfield, from other counties, San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Tacoma, and some other places. So their experiences produced best practices, and Melissa had also produced, with her literature search, the best practice for that area, the 2 studies she reviewed. So in our customs, in our conversations, we've come to the conclusion that there were, a near conclusion that there are 2 primary goals, primary 1 and primary 2. Primary 1 is emergency temporary housing, and the primary 2 goal is to set up a limited long-term housing. So both of those are feasible, we feel, and the idea is that we can build this snapshot solution for now, but if in 15 or 30 days the population on the common doubles, this particular snapshot solution may not work. So with the deadline, so that everyone would know that the common would be abandoned, whether it's September 17th or some other day, it will energize and activate the groups that are going to be able to move to assist. So the primary object is to, can you hear me if I move away from the microphone? The primary object is to create this emergency temporary housing by going to empty units. We can't go into other people's property and say, this apartment's empty, we're going to take it. We can't go into a storefront and say, this is empty, let's let some people sleep there. That's not realistic. We can't compare, I heard the First National Bank's empty, why don't we open the door? That's why we can't open the door, it's because it's not safe. It can't get a CO to be used. So there are a lot of places that were mentioned this evening that we've already checked, and I'll answer each one of them from the councilor if they want to go to it. So this is, if you are able to put a time limit on the common, we want to convene a rapid rehousing team with using the services of the Salvation Army, the LA Homeless Services, Community Action, and ServiceNet to coordinate the direct work with folks on the common to connect to housing. We plan to do that through Captain Peabody calls a navigator and I call a shepherding. So the idea is that we would hire someone who would work with Captain Peabody and meet with each individual person on the common to deal with their crisis, their stabilization issues, and how we can move them to housing. Everyone's going to have a different need for housing, and everyone's going to have a different need for support, connected services. We're not just thinking this out of the box so much as many of these people. MJ is very experienced in housing. I've been in psychiatry as a nurse for several decades. Been involved with housing and construction of new housing and working with Vietnam veterans. So there's a lot of similarities. And so, as someone mentioned earlier, let's not reinvent the wheel, but that's so true. So I think a group of people who know what they're doing and have done it in the past are better than a group of people who haven't done it and have a good heart. Doesn't mean we don't have the ability to bring other people in as volunteers and help us through the ordeals that's going to go on over the next couple of months. We want to create a task force to address stopgap shelter you need for the upcoming winter season. So we're going to need something besides what ServiceNet has. They don't have any more funds, they don't have enough funds, they have 20 beds, they can't handle the people that come to their shelter. So we need to prepare something for the overflow in the winter time. I hate to say that's not our job, and it really isn't, but we can be involved in some ways to help the people in the agencies that it is their job and they need some extra support. And lastly, for the longer term, we need to bring in the Greenfield Housing Authority and the Greenfield Housing Associates, along with the number of different agencies, GHCD, utilizing the mass housing rental vouchers, and using Section 8, working with Community Action and Claire, who has some history in working with the homeless and some issues down when she was there in Northampton. We can put together a project that would be SRO, single room occupancy. We need to find a place, we need to find whether that can be done on town land with a preferred developer, or whether another developer comes in with the assets that we can arrange for that developer and run the building. So that was that's the basis of it all. We're trying to not criminalize anyone, not criminalize any type of behavior. We were wondering if we were working well with, say, BHN, Behavioral Health Network. We worked with them to see if this was a result of increased recidivism or a result of a failed program. That was not the case. They are not connected. The opportunity to help and assist in that program is open. So we have a lot of assets in town, and several people mentioned this is a great community, and we have a high value, and we maintain those high values and scruples, and that's why I wanted to bring everyone together this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Gilmore.
Mr. Mayor, I don't understand why it's imperative that we restrict the common. I listened to the sort of plans that you had laid out about having short-term housing, long-term housing, subsidizing some of the beds they had at ServiceNet, but I don't understand how closing down the common to campers has any effect on that.
Well, first it's going to be the weather. The weather's going to have an impact on the people campers attempting in the common. So if we don't have a deadline, then how are we going to handle that in the future? Please reply.
No, I understand the weather is going to present its own deadline, but I think that at that point people are going to move on their own. I'm really concerned about restricting the use of the town common so that there's an emergency and people have to be out there. I don't think we need to take someone who can't afford housing and give them a $200 fine. I really don't think that that's gonna make things better. I think it's just gonna, it's not even gonna make it worse because they don't have the $200. It's just adding insult to injury. I think it just takes for their dignity.
I don't have the authority to change that, but you do. You can make that a $1 fine, and you can make it subsequent offenses, $1, $2, $1. You can do whatever you want with the amount of the fine, and you can do whatever you want with any other phrases you have. And I'm willing to work with you whatever you need.
Councilor Nolan?
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious if we have resources for a rapid rehousing team, why have we not done this in the past?
You know, we're not in the housing business, so we have the Greenfield Housing Authority, and they take care of all the housing in Greenfield. We have a number of the block grant does rehab housing. That's all they do. Whatever housing group in town that you can imagine is not involved in town. Doesn't mean we don't talk housing a lot. Just that we don't have access to funds on a priority basis because the housing authority has that access.
So, when you talk about this rapid rehousing team, who would actually be convening that and then who would be a part of it?
Well, we've had conversation with Captain Peabody, and that would be the group that would be leading it. This community action and service net. I think MJ has contacted another group to the other service, although that gentleman is leaving next Friday, I believe, so we're going to get this new person.
Mayor, just out of curiosity, I've heard Energy Park, I think it's a nonprofit though, I don't think it's a town, it's not town.
Right, it's not town-owned.
So it would, if that nonprofit agency had decided that that would be okay, it would be up to them, I would assume.
That's a pavilion, there's a pavilion down there, another there,
Mm-hmm.
short walk up in Main Street. A little Main Street.
I mean, I, as a temporary solution, I like Energy Park, but I know that that's not, we're gonna have to ask somebody else for that. But I just wanted to make sure that I was right in that assumption.
Chief Strand is remember, is our emergency preparedness officer, and he's familiar with the codes and so on. And this is Mark Smith, and we're helping. Chelsea's here tonight.
Councilor Slinton?
Can you please clarify, Mr. Mayor, what you mean by, like, more specific, in what the emergency temporary solutions might be?
So we've looked around at some buildings, shouldn't name property owners at this point. We found some buildings where they moved to another location and now they're building vacant. They had 6 or 8 people in them before, so they moved to 6 or 8 more people, which we replacing that group. There are also, there's one house that the town owns that we might be able to do something with. There are, we've got 2 property owners that we've spoken to that have volunteered. After we asked, they said they would have some units available at a certain time.
I'm sorry, I just need clarification what we were talking about the energy park for.
Oh, I was just, I just asked the question, it was kind of a non-sequitur about what would be the possibility of moving people to Energy Park. And I always thought it was a nonprofit, and I was pretty sure it was a nonprofit, so I just kind of wanted to clarify that with the mayor. Because it seems like a temporary viable solution if it was, and we can discuss it during our deliberations.
The building in Energy Park?
No, I'm just talking about the land at the Energy Park.
The town owns Energy Park, it's public land.
It's public.
It's a nonprofit, right?
It's
Mass GIS property says it's owned by town of Greenfield. Yeah, if you look on Mass GIS property now. Yes.
So I think there was a lease with, at the end of the lease, this nonprofit was going to take over title. If that, the lease has expired. You can check that, GIS.
Mass GIS property now says town of Greenfield owns it.
But
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are-
yeah.
Well,
I just wanted to say that we can't solve problems doing the same things that got us into the situation that we're in. I will not support any option that is just moving folks from an outdoor situation by ordinance to another outdoor situation. So I know that we have to think outside the box here as a team. It sounds like, thank you so much, Mayor, for all the work that you put into this and for all of my colleagues and for the community. I just can't feel comfortable saying that's our plan. We're gonna remove or ask them to move on and we're gonna have you camp somewhere else and that's the solution. So I urge us to be a little bit more creative than that tonight because I think these are good people and they always let me pet their dog when I see them out and so I really appreciate it. So I just think we can do better than that.
Madam President, in our studies, we found that there are two types of encampments. So one is called an accommodated camp, and the other is called a co-op. The accommodated camp is one where they are self-governing, maintain their own security and safety and amenities and so on. A co-op camp is where you have the ability to work with individuals and help them in their singular crisis, which goes to looking for additional support services, peripheral type of services. So to enhance Councilor Stempel's comment, we already have an encampment. So we could just make that the co-op camp. Instead of going somewhere else to make it a co-op camp. We can work with what we have. And my comment earlier was that if we can handle what's there now, if there were another 100 people there over the next 30 days, we couldn't handle that type of flow. It just would work that way.
Thank you.
Councilor Mayo?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to follow up on something that you said earlier. You said that you had, how did you come about with you said you came about with, or came up with a list of property owners who had vacant buildings, or more recent vacant buildings?
Right, so we deal with developers, MJ works with a lot of carpenters and companies and so on. And I work with a number of people who are looking for land and doing real estate. So we came up with some people who are in the business right now, and some of them are finishing up some units. Some are in town, some are out of town. So those are potentials, and if we have the authority from the council to move in that direction, then we would be able to do that.
Is it possible to put a call out to property owners to make use of their property?
That would be great. We can work through the OBA and the Business Association. We can work through assessor's list to find out what properties are, or we can just advertise in the newspaper. We don't have any rental assistance subsidies. It's possible we might build them into a program if we get some permission and authority to do so. So that's one of the options to work with.
Does anybody else have any other questions for the mayor? Okay, Councilor Sund.
Yes, got the Green River School, that's there, and it's being pretty much nothing right now. Is there any way that could be used as a somewhat place to have people move into?
No, the Green River School is under a request for proposal process right now. There's a hazardous waste removal taking place, that's why there are no students there. The school committee is in the process of putting together a program for the Green River School. Hopefully their program is going to be ready in January, and hopefully the contractors will be out of there by January.
Councilor Mayo.
Mr. Mayor, you said you had a list or were provided a list of best practices that, for homelessness. Do you have that list available?
I can give you, I'll see what I have. called Melissa Osborne's best practices. I think everyone has a copy of that. Did you receive hers?
No.
Homeless encampments, practices, lessons, and alternatives. And I haven't addressed some of the issues that we can when emergency, somebody said it's not a crisis, something else is a crisis. Well, actually, this is a crisis. It's a crisis because we have the health issues that can occur. There's been a number of epidemic issues in a number of camps throughout the United States having to do with hepatitis A. Hepatitis A.
Councilman Mouse, did you?
I do have a question, Mayor. The communities that you did discuss for your best practices, I heard Tacoma, Santa Monica, or San Diego, some other communities. Those are all communities with hundreds of thousands of people and substantially more resources than Greenfield. Do you have any best practices from communities that are closer to size?
No.
Thank you.
Mayor Martin, do you know, because I don't know that we know the answer, why the churches, because I know that Second Congo, I think it was 7 years ago maybe, because I know that, I mean, you remember that, where we were providing shelter and then it became too expensive. Is that a state law that made this sprinkler system mandatory, or is that a town law?
That's a good question, because several years ago there was a temporary shelter law, and about 4 years ago it was incorporated into the regular law. So, and it was, actually, Chief Strand can speak to that better as well as Mark Snow, but that law exists and it's part of the state code.
I was afraid of that. Okay. Any other questions for the mayor before we start talking amongst ourselves? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, there's no actual motion that's on the floor right now. Anybody can make a motion at any time. We have Councilor Mouse's motion, we have my motion, we have the mayor's suggestion, which could be made into a motion. So I'll entertain any motions right now or discussion. Not all at once. Councilor Mouse.
Thank you, President Reil. I want to talk to my colleagues primarily, but obviously everyone else in the room, because some of you don't actually know me very well, at least my personal history, and so I want to let you know sort of the background that I come in looking at this problem for. When I come from a childhood where I had parents who had substance abuse problems and undiagnosed mental health issues. And at the age of 6, we lived at a campground at Robbins Pond in the eastern part of the state, and at the end of the summer season, they had no place to go. And so at the end of that year, I went to the Mainspring House, which is the homeless shelter in Brockton, Massachusetts, which is a women's children's center. My stepfather wasn't permitted to be with us during that period of time. And my mother was connected to some services to deal with alcoholism and was connected to services to get some training and education and to get a job. And ultimately, some work through my stepfather, we were also able to eventually find some housing. That was good for us. Eventually, they had a dissolution of their marriage, and my mother had a second husband, and they were not financially viable. And that's why we came to Greenfield. It's because we were on that 8-year list for subsidized housing. And Greenfield had a veterans preference at Oak Courts. And so in Oak Courts, my second stepfather was a veteran, and so we were able, thankfully, to be able to get a preference and move into Oak Courts, where I thankfully grew up and was able, as a high school student, and was able to garner a tremendous amount of support from this community, as well as the others that I've been. I went away to college, didn't have enough money to go to college, came back and lived in the basement of Reil CLEANING. Some of you will remember Reil CLEANING. He's passed away, but he was a tireless advocate for veterans and youth. Lived in his basement for a year before I went into the military. When I came home from basic training, I got roommates together, tied roommates together here and there, enough to have communal living, where I lived with other people while I continued my education. When I wasn't able to have roommates together, I lived in the Winslow house for a period of time before it was reformed by the Greenfield Housing Authority, and it, for all the trouble that it has now, the Winslow house was dramatically worse prior to this. It's not really habitable, which was why the Housing Authority took over that property. I've had the great fortune of support of this community to be able to get education and to be able to provide for myself economically, but that has not always been the case. So I don't come at this issue from one where I have judgment towards the people who have problems, or a realistic expectation that we are going to solve close to all of the problems that are before us. Greenfield is a very generous community. It was generous to me. We have some of the most generous benefits in the Commonwealth. Greenfield has over 70% of the low-income housing in the county of Franklin County. We have a tremendous amount of low-income housing available here. There are limited resources. They're not always easy to navigate. People who are dealing with homelessness, and I deal with people with homelessness issues every day in my work as a criminal defense attorney, and in the family and probate court. They have a variety of issues, some of which are economic, some of which are mental health, some of which are substance abuse, and some of which are criminal. And some of those have been outlined very well by some professionals who are dealing with homelessness every day who spoke before us. There are challenges. There are reasons why people can't be in places. You can't be in a homeless shelter when someone else in a homeless shelter has a restraining order against you, or vice versa. There are problems. This has not been the first time that this issue has been highlighted from Greenfield. You know, the idea that just because people are on the common that suddenly we're taking notice. I've been in this community since 1991, and homelessness has been talked about the entire time. When I worked at Cumberland Farms while I was going through GCC, Route 2 Russ would come in every day and buy cigarettes for me, you know, and everyone knew him, and everyone knew his circumstances. It was not that long ago that we had a homicide between two people who were homeless, one of whom had mental health issues. It wasn't long ago that the area that was known as the jungle was cleared out, and that was on the front page of the newspaper. It was not that long ago that people were living at Wedgewood Gardens, and that area was cleared out by people because of this public use ordinance. It was not that long ago that the homeless population was living on private land that belonged to the mayor, who took no action to move people off of that property until political pressure was brought on him to get people off that land. And no one stepped forward at that time offering a solution to help these people. The mayor was put in a position where he felt because of political pressure he had to push people off trespass people from that property, and he invested, I think, over $2,000 to clean up that area. The history of this public use ordinance is important to understand. There's a reason why there's an exemption in public use ordinance for conservation land and for town common. The reason the exception is for the conservation land is because people do camp on conservation land. It's an appropriate place to camp. That's one of the reasons that kind of camping and recreation is appropriate. You need permitting to do that kind of camping, and it's not intended as temporary housing, but that's why there's an exemption in it. The reason there's an exemption for the town common is there are activities that are contemplated to be on the town common after 10 o'clock at night. They include things like a candlelight vigil for someone who's passed away. And I've been to candlelight vigils for victims of domestic violence on the town common after 10 o'clock at night. It's contemplated that you might have something like a Take Back the Night march for women who are concerned about domestic violence and public safety and their male pairs in the community. And they march on the common to take back the night after 10 o'clock at night. It's contemplated that we'll have recreational opportunities on the town common, things like a New Year's Eve celebration. In fact, we just spent $17,500 for a design study to expand the town common for specifically nighttime activity where we would talk about having things that were late at night that were music. And I know I'm going on for a while, but I want to make sure my colleagues understand there's a reason for that. Now, when that exception was put into place, we had a different assemblies ordinance. Our public assemblies ordinance at that time required members of the public who wanted to use the town common for those purposes to go to the Board of License Commissioners to get a permit. And for 4 years, there was a long debate related to public assemblies and allowing people to come out and demonstrate without getting a permit. And I worked with former Councilor Singer, my notice is in the back of the room, and we eliminated the permit requirement. We allowed people to get a permit for priority, but we didn't make people required. This is an unintended consequence of that change, because now there is this place that people can go without a permit and set up. I served on the Board of License Commissioners prior to that, and for 3 years, that I served and all the time I observed before and after, I guarantee you this kind of use would never have been approved by any members of the Board of License Commissioners that I served with. I've seen opportunities where overnight camping for a demonstration about homelessness was allowed. But generally, there are durational limits on how long you can use the town common. You can't put up a sign for more than 8 days. That was the limit. In fact, it was 6 days, and we expanded it because we thought people would want to promote from weekend to weekend. The creche is up for not more than 30 days. I think that's the longest display that's allowed on the common. And what we're talking about here is a use that occupies the common for a prolonged period of time and occupies a substantial portion of the common. And it is fair to say, I think it is fair to say that use prohibits other uses. I know that is not intentional. I know that is not by design. I know that people would probably be welcoming to other people, but there are some uses that just don't work very well together, and there are some people who want to be on the common free from and be able to exercise their rights to use the common for a short period of time for what are reasonable and historic purposes. And so we put a lot of money into the common, not only the $17,500 that was put into the design, but also this last spring, we reseeded the entire common. And during that, it was the spring before, you're right. And during that reseeding period, there was a long period of time when no one could go on the common. And that was frustrating for a lot of people because they wanted to be on the common, but they couldn't be on the common because the use was so much that the grounds were not maintained. I don't think the mayor's proposal will work because I think there is a use after 10 o'clock at night that is important. I do know that what I proposed, which is a set of restrictions to the use of the common, the types of use of the common, I think they're mostly reasonable, but I'm open to amendments from my colleagues. The suggestion that I didn't think it was fair to do that without proposing some other location, because I know there is an issue here, right? And though we have not dealt with it for many years, and though we've had we've had community resources that have been doing their best to deal with it. We as a council, we as a city, have had a minor role because it's not primarily a municipal role. I know that the the mayor, through his leadership on the Mass Municipal Association, as well as I on the Mass Municipal Association, worked very hard for the governor's housing bill, which had money for homelessness in it, but was not approved by the legislature because people like snob zoning. And it's not just in Boston. We had a very difficult time here in Greenfield passing accessory dwelling units to make affordable housing available. I hear a lot of solutions, but when the time comes to have those solutions happen, they don't happen. And so I'm open to any solutions to the problems of poverty and homelessness. I'm willing to work with anyone on those issues. I just don't think we're going to solve them, but I do think that we have an obligation as town councilors to find some solution that does allow other people to use the common and protects the property and the sanctity of what is at the end of the day, is a war memorial to the veterans of the Civil War that was dedicated by Frederick Goddard Tuckerman, who was the most notable resident in the history of Greenfield when he dedicated that monument. So I'm not making a specific motion, but I wanted to put my point of view and the reason why I brought this forward to my fellow councilors so that we could have a conversation about where we will go forward, but I hope we do something tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mans. I'm going to make a motion right now, and then we're going to talk about it. So, this is a new ordinance relative to religious organizations hosting homeless. An ordinance enabling religious organizations to provide shelter for the homeless. So I move that this ordinance be enacted. The purpose is that many houses of worship in the town of Greenfield are willing to use their facilities as places where the homeless could seek shelter. The largest impediment to this is the cost of adhering to various inspection codes. This ordinance would lift some of those requirements, enabling houses of worship to provide much-needed assistance to those in need without incurring enormous costs. Temporary encampments and housing for the homeless hosted by houses of worship. 1, a religious organization may host temporary encampments or provide shelter for the homeless on property owned or controlled by the religious organization, whether within buildings located on the property or elsewhere on the property outside of buildings. The town of Greenfield will lift the restrictions that are not state or federally mandated that A, impose conditions other than those necessary to protect public health and safety, and that do not substantially burden the decisions or actions of a religious organization regarding the location of housing or shelter for homeless persons on property owned by the religious organization. B, requires a religious organization to obtain insurance pertaining to the liability of a municipality with respect to homeless persons housed on property owned by a religious organization, or otherwise require the religious organization to indemnify the municipality against such liability. 3, for the purposes of this section, religious organization means federally protected practice of a recognized religious assembly, school, or institution that owns or controls real property. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I made my motion and it's been seconded. And I will say that, first I'll speak, of course this didn't go through any committee because we're trying to do some emergency actions here. This is not a permanent solution, but this is something I've thought about because as we spoke of when the mayor was up here, there was a time when Second Congregational was able to provide a warming shelter, and because of the various, seems like it's state law, which requires a sprinkler system, they that warming shelter had to shut down. And so I know we can't change state law, but I'm thinking I changed the language of this a little bit that, you know, states we can't, if it's state law, but at least if there's something in our own municipal code that we can make easier for the churches to provide this shelter, then we could do that. And if we want to pass it tonight, great. If we want some more time to work on this, I think it's something we should do before the colder weather gets here, because I do know these houses of worship are willing to do something. They just need some help to do it. So, take other comments. Councilor Gilmore.
I like the intent, but I'm curious if we have any idea what's municipal and what's state, what's federal. I'm kind of curious how far we think this is going to go.
I think that's a good question, and I think we could get those answers through committee. And if this got tabled, then by the time we come back to the August 15th meeting, those answers will be clear and perhaps we could pass it then. Because this meeting came up tonight, I wanted to offer a solution. Councilor Mass.
President Reno, I know I just talked for a bunch of time. I think that, I actually think that there's absolutely very little wrong with this ordinance at all. As I've reviewed it again, where it accepts health and safety, those are regulations that are related to the building code, those are health and safety regulations. So I don't think this affects those. And I don't object to anything in this ordinance. What I would suggest and offer perhaps as a friendly amendment is an additional line that says, "And the zoning code of the town of Greenfield shall be changed, shall be amended to be in compliance herewith." Because at the paragraph 2.1 is essentially a zoning ordinance. And I, to the extent that this may violate our state law related to how we pass zoning ordinances, that only becomes an issue if someone objects within 21 days.
I accept that friendly amendment. Councilor Stemple and then Councilor Sun.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I saw a hand in the audience, but we don't take questions from the audience. This is just for the town council's deliberation. We don't even let the mayor speak unless we call him. So it's just the rules of procedure.
So 2 questions. So it sounds like I'm jotting down plans. So we're talking about emergency temporary. So it sounds like the mayor may have some vacant buildings that are available. And then my other concern would be, are they safe? I'm sure you considered that. And then the churches, do we have specific organizations who are ready and able to come to our call right now?
If they knew, I believe I can answer that if this were passed, they could get their facilities ready. I did volunteer at the Second Congregational Warming Shelter. It's a really nice facility down in the basement. There's plenty of room. And I know it was this whole sprinkler system thing that shut it down. So yes, and I think if we did it, the sooner we do this, the better, because then there's 3 months. I mean, I'm being hopeful that there's 3 months until the cold weather gets here.
And then my second question is, I'd like to also move on to discuss limited long-term. I know this is an emergency meeting. We're really here to talk about immediate solutions. But I wish we could call the mayor back up to talk a little bit about what that limited long-term looked like. Because I was curious, does that mean we're allocating block grant money to creating a facility?
Well, Councilor Stemple, could I interrupt you? So we're just talking about the motion that's on the floor right now for the churches. But we can get to that, and we can definitely call the mayor back up.
So I'm just saying that's pertinent to me. To me, it's pertinent to the ordinance, because I think they're connected. But
Okay, elaborate. Maybe I just wasn't understanding.
I was just saying, I think emergency temporary also is connected to limited long-term. And the fact that if we allocate emergency temporary, we have to also, so what happens when the temporary ends? So I just want us to kind of think it through a little bit more.
Okay, now I see it does connect. Sorry about that. Councilor Son.
It's, I'm more than willing to be like a go-between for talk to the different churches and more than willing to help out that way. I know a lot of the people in the churches around Greenfield. I've done work with them before, so I'm more than willing to go and be the go-between between the town council and churches, if you would like me to do that.
I appoint you by the power vested in me as the interfaith coordinator, liaison of the town council. Councilor Son. Does anybody else have a, Chief, could you come up and talk about the, fire, the sprinkler situation?
There is specific building code regulation and fire code regulations that address specifically shelters and temporary shelters and emergency shelters. And there's a chart that we go by in regards to certain things, like depending on the construction of the building, the type of protection system within the building, the number of egresses, the level of the building, whether it's a basement or a first floor, dictates the use of a shelter. And so there's 3 broad categories within that, depending on where the building falls and depending on what they have for protection. I will tell you that all shelters require fire protection, not necessarily a sprinkler system, but fire protection, i.e. a smoke detector system with carbon monoxide interconnected and monitored by a fire company. And some of the uses that can be used is, in one particular circumstance, a shelter can be granted for a year. They can be open for not more than 52 days, but you can only be open for 7 consecutive days at the most. That's one option, depending on the construction. A second option is that they could get a year permit to occupy. This is with a partial sprinkler system. And it can be open for 52 calendar days within that year and only 14 consecutive days in a row. And the last one is with a full sprinkler system where they can get the occupancy for the whole year. They can be open for not more than 104 calendar days, and the most that they can be open for is 30 consecutive days. So depending on what building and what scenario they have would dictate how long they could open up a temporary shelter. But there's a very robust section of the state building code that this comes out of, and the building official and the fire official cannot deviate from that. There's nowhere, there are certain codes where it says at the discretion of the head of, or the authority having jurisdiction. In this particular section of code, there is not that leeway, so we would be obligated to enforce it.
Can I ask you how much a sprinkler system costs, just a ballpark figure?
So it depends on how the sprinkler system is designed. It's a little bit of a complicated issue, but the short answer is that if you're building or putting in a sprinkler system for a church, it has to be what is considered a 13R, which means a residential type sprinkler. Rough guess, for a whole church, a couple $100,000. If it's a single floor, it could be considerably cheaper. Remember that the code does permit partial sprinkler systems. But then the real issue is even before you start talking sprinkler system is the fire protection in regards to detection and notification. And I think that was one of the shortcomings that was at the church. I believe that they've done some work. I know there's some other houses of worship that have done work, including putting in sprinkler systems. And I would be happy to sit in on any group and work with anyone to try to find a solution that can fit within the code.
Councilor Gilmore.
So since I didn't write down every single thing you just said, could you tell me what that code is so I could look it up?
Sure, it's chapter 31 of the state building code. It pulls in multiple different codes, but specifically it's section 3112. And it goes into temporary overnight shelters, and I would be happy to give you my copy. I don't have enough for everybody, but I'm happy to give you the copy that I have.
I'll Google it.
You can email it.
Sure. Sure. It's primarily building code enforcement, but there are stipulations within it that spells out the fire department's responsibility.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I only see church representatives here still from Deerfield and Charlemont. I don't see any Greenfield churches. Oh, okay, there you go. So councilors, some will get a meeting together if this ordinance passes, and we'll try to figure out how to work with the fire chief and the churches. So seeing no other questions or comments, okay, Councilor Ricketts.
did hear earlier about the idea of a hotline, and I really like that idea, especially if this church shelter passes. Because as a community, there's still so much room to help for either money or, you know, toilet paper, paper towels, just supplies. And I know when I got out of the hospital and saw this happening on the common, I was one of the people that was very happy to see it. Because we need to know that this exists. It wasn't out in the woods someplace. It's been happening for years and years. So this dialogue is so important. But no matter what we vote tonight, it's just not over. There's time to pitch in. And I've been going to the common with my daughter. She's been bringing water and helping out so much. And just listening and telling me some of the stories. And then we finally got to speak on Sunday. So I do want to thank you for coming, and I know that it's difficult. And I've been close to this before, so close that I moved to another state out of embarrassment. So I understand this fully. And so when you see a community outpour like this, you pick it up. Just imagine going through a stroke and not having insurance, and not having somebody start a bank account or a GoFundMe. This is how it starts, something just that basic. So I do hope that we pass President's idea, and I really want to help by helping to be in charge of listening for all those resources. I talked to the captain of Salvation Army for quite a while this morning, and I know that he does breakfast and lunch, and they do showers there. So I just want to help to be that liaison and make sure about the shampoo and the soap and all those things that we just get up and just do every morning because it's just part of our routine. It's just that easy. So there is so much work to do. So I just want to take the time to thank everyone. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Vice President Ricketts. Anyone else? Council Mayo.
I too have spent a little bit of time with the residents on the common. I didn't bring any water. I brought my 2 ears and my driver's license. I did bring one of the residents there to the hospital when he needed some care. And I'll still be bringing my 2 ears. But I think it's important, no matter what we do tonight, I think it's important. We heard about sanitary conditions and immediate sanitary conditions and the great need for a porta potty to be within
I'm sorry, Council Mayo, just a point of order, is this about the motion that's on the floor with the houses of worship? Because.
Well.
Or is it
in a way, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry.
No matter what we do, whether it's the church ordinance or Isaac's ordinance, I'm concerned that the timing of it will not be as immediate as the townsfolk need. They need immediate. They need an immediate porta potty. That's regardless of what we do here tonight. I want to make sure that it's step on the gas time. That's the kind of action that I would like to see, and I know that they would like to see it as well. Thank you.
Any other comments about the motion on the floor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. So, just to kind of recap where we are right now. The church solution will be for the wintertime. Hopefully, Councilor Sun will work with the churches, and I see that the churches are here now. I'm sorry, I didn't realize the Greenfield churches are still here. And so that's something that we'll move on for the wintertime. That's only temporary. So what we're looking at right now is that we have the encampment on the common. And we have one motion that was presented that isn't on the floor right now by Councilor Mass, which would make Wedgewood Gardens available. And if that motion's made, Councilor Mass can explain that some more. There's also a motion that somebody on the council can make relating to the mayor's request, which would be to put a deadline on the common encampment. I'm personally, after talking about Energy Park, am curious about Energy Park much more than Wedgewood Gardens at this point, and because that seems like, it seems to me, it's not a long-term solution, but we need a short-term solution that is better than the town common, because from my conversations with Maddie, I don't think you like being on the common. I don't think it's a great place, and Energy Park is right near downtown, and there's also a shelter where the stage is, but we don't have enough information about Energy Park to move on that right now, but I would be happy to get that information after this meeting. But does somebody else have a motion to make, Councilor Gilmore?
Can I make a motion that the town put a porta potty on the town common?
Yes.
That has a cost to it, and that's something I have to ask the mayor about. Mayor Martin, could you come back so we could ask you about a porta potty?
The Interfaith Council said they pay for that.
Yep, it's already taken care of.
Okay. I don't know, code-wise, I don't know. So Mayor Martin, what do you, Councilor Gilmore just asked about a porta potty on the common.
I don't think that's a good idea. We've got a request to put a porta potty at the back of the town hall, and the site that was selected can't be used because it's going to be under construction. We're doing the ADA sidewalks in the back of the town hall and the compressors for the heating, HVAC in the building. However, there is a spot out by the farmer's market shed where it would only cost us one parking space probably that we could use porta potty and still have access to pick up and drop off. So we'd like to do that with your permission. We could do that rather than our comments.
Councilor Gilmore, you can make that motion.
Yeah, so I move that we put a porta potty tomorrow, hopefully, in the parking spot by the shed for the farmer's market.
And the motion's been made and seconded by Councilor Mayo, Councilor Mass.
I just want to clarify that we're acting within the authority of council. Is it my understanding is that the motion is to resolve to call upon the mayor to place a porta potty at the location indicated by Councilor Gilmore. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, so now we're, Council Mass.
Councilor President Reno, I certainly appreciate the conversation about the Energy Park. I agree the Energy Park is preferable to the town common. I definitely agree with that. I also don't think, however, that the Energy Park is a suitable location. It is a place where we have concerts, where people are invited down to be there for recreational purposes. And there's a series of events that are scheduled for the Energy Park over the course of the summer with a significant investment from both private and nonprofit contributors. That said, I think we should take some action about the common tonight. And if it is the Energy Park that we select, I'll take that because I think it's necessary to do something about the common. My preference was Wedgewood Gardens, and the reason why Wedgewood Gardens was my preference was several reasons, and I want to explain so that people know. One is we had previously had homeless people living in Wedgewood Gardens at that location. It has been a site that the homeless have self-selected in the past. Contrary to what you've heard here today, there are trees in Wedgewood Gardens. That property is not just the mowed area. It extends all the way to the river. There's been a question about whether or not you can put porta potties there because of the water levels that are present. Well, we put porta potties, we put 3 porta potties down there for the Green River Festival. So clearly we can put porta potties there. If we can put porta potties down there to support people who are paying hundreds of dollars to go listen to music, we can put porta potties there to support people who need to take care of their basic necessities. It's been suggested that it floods. It is certainly a wet area. It is the flood that affected that site approximately 9 years ago was a 100-year flood. That does not mean that there isn't regular high water levels there. Beyond that, there are. Not all of the land is always flooded. There's high areas, there's low areas. The reason why this site I proposed is because long-term, we're going to need to have a site that is available to people who become homeless, who have not connected with resources. And the idea that we're going to solve the problem of homelessness by winter is not going to happen. And the idea that we're going to have and that it's never going to reoccur, that no one's ever going to become homeless again and not need to be connected to those services again. This problem is going to persist. It has persisted for a long time. It doesn't mean we shouldn't make efforts, but practically speaking, it's going to continue to be a problem. The Wedgewood Garden site is not developable because of our FEMA restrictions. However, camping is permitted on that property. That's not a permanent structure, it's not a temporary structure. You can set up a tent on that location. Now, there are still Board of Health regulations related to temporary housing in tents that are an issue for any site in Greenfield. I'm not proposing that the town proactively say this is a place where you should go if you're homeless, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we should expand the exemption on Wedgewood Gardens to say that you can be there after 10 o'clock at night and before 6 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't make anyone go to that site, doesn't send anyone to that site, but if someone sets up at that site, they can't be kicked out because they're trespassing. That's what I'm proposing. Doesn't force anyone to do anything. The second part of my proposal is about selecting what uses are available for the town common. And it is designed to protect the property that's there and to make that property available for the use of the commons, all people. And it talks about not setting up tents and doing things that are going to cover the surface area of the ground. This doesn't have to happen tomorrow. I know many people would like it to happen tomorrow, but it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. My observations with Common, I've been up there at least 5 times. I've spent up to 3 hours at a time talking to people out on the Common, is that the grass is already destroyed for this year. It's going to already need to be reseeded. So I don't think we are doing much further damage this year, but at some point we need to restore that and we need to make it a place that is usable for all people. And I don't think we want a reoccurrence of what's happening now in the future. So we're gonna have to set some sort of restrictions if the restriction isn't that you can't be there after 10 o'clock at night, which I think most of us agree shouldn't happen. I'm open to my colleagues about what those restrictions should be and what type they should be. And I am not saying, I am open to adding an effective date onto this to give some time for both the churches, the community service organizations, the mayor's task force, all the people involved to take action. But there are people in this community, and many of them in this community, who want to also be able to access that land And I think it's incumbent on us to give them some sense of when they are going to be able to access that land comfortably too. And just because we think they should be comfortable does not mean that they are or will be. But I think they have a right to be for shorter periods of time. So I'm going to put the motion on the floor for the purpose of debate and to hear my colleagues' ideas. But if it's just going to fail tonight, I'd be looking to table it so we can talk about it further. But I really would like to make some progress on it and hear what my colleagues have to say. So I'll move my motion as written in the back.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Councilman Yovanovich. Vice President Ricketts.
Council Bass, I had a question about the time, that no one be there after 10 at night, and I wondered if that was an hour that you had gotten from our police chief, because I was thinking that would be a busy time for our own police department to take care of the entire city, and I didn't want the focus to have to now be a common every night at that time. So I just wondered, is that something, Chief Hagan discussed, and that's where you got that time from?
Councilman?
I have discussed that issue with Chief Hague as it related to the mayor's proposal, but that is not part of my proposal. My proposal sets no time limits on which people can be on the common. They can be on the common at any time, but it does restrict the types of things that they can do on the common.
Councilor Gilmore? Just to clarify, I'm sorry, Councilor Gilmore. Councilor Mass, is the entire amendment and new ordinance relative to the occupation of the town common, right? That you're moving not just the ordinance for the preservation of the town, it's everything? The whole enchilada?
The whole thing.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to clarify.
Together.
Yep. So everybody understands that, it's the whole thing. Okay, Councilor Gilmore.
So I like the idea of opening Wedgewood Gardens and possibly other places if there are places that are worth exploring. But I don't like the idea of restricting the common. I think that people have to go somewhere. I don't remember who it was in the audience who said that, you can't just like push them off the edge. They have to be somewhere. I don't like the idea that we're going to talk about reseeding the grass when we've got people who are just trying to survive. I also don't like the idea that I can go, because I'm a little bit of a social justice warrior, right? I can go camp on the common and protest homelessness in my tent, but a homeless person couldn't camp on the common in their tent. I really just don't like that idea. So I couldn't support this.
Councilor Simple, then Councilor Gilmore, then Councilor Song.
I just wanted to say, I think that if we do a good enough job of creating options, perhaps folks wouldn't want to be in the fish tank anymore, fishbowl, fish tank. But I also think preference over one group of people versus a different group of people, it creates an us versus them in our community that I think we've been trying really hard to, I know that will never go away, and that's just the perfect world, but I'm also not for policing the common, simply because I think, like I said before, if we do a good enough job of creating options, then I think that will solve everything. But I also think we have to be very careful about shouldn't we all be able to be on the common together? I get it, but it's a campsite right now, but why can't I go and join them or sit on the bench myself? I think it's open for everybody, and just because there's a group there doesn't mean that not everyone's welcome to join them.
Councilor Dolan?
I think a theme that has emerged for me throughout this whole conversation is a lack of options. No one is on the common because that's where they want to be. They're on the common because every other option has been foreclosed in Greenfield city limits. So my approach to this whole thing, we probably will not find one solution for everyone, but we should find every solution that works for someone. So if it means modifying the regulations on church shelters, if that gets one person sheltered for one night, it's worth doing. Similarly, if there's one person who wants to go to Wedgewood, I'm fine with opening that up for that purpose. What I'm not okay with is taking an established community and asking them to leave in favor of a location that it has not been tried, that we have not worked out all the details for, that may or may not be a better option. And I would also just, to conclude, I would also say, in the instance that we pass something basically evicting folks from the town common, and we don't have permission for camping from the Conservation Commission, we've effectively left no other options. And that's actually an Eighth Amendment violation, is my understanding. I just want to read a passage from Bell versus Boise. It should be uncontroversial that punishing conduct that is a universal and unavoidable consequence of being human violates the Eighth Amendment. It is a foregone conclusion that human life requires certain acts, among them sleeping. As the Jones Court noted, it is impossible for human individuals to avoid sitting, lying, and sleeping for days, weeks, months, or months at a time, as if human beings could remain in perpetual motion. Once an individual becomes homeless, by virtue of this status, certain life necessities, such as sleeping, that would otherwise be performed in private, must now be performed in public. Therefore, sleeping in public is precisely the type of universal and unavoidable conduct that is necessary for human survival for homeless individuals who lack access to shelter space. So, that to me makes it a pretty clear constitutional issue if we're allowing no space at a time when there are also no shelter beds available.
You, Councilor Son?
As far as Wedgewood Gardens, I've been, like we have the cement barriers next to Mill Road. I asked, about to the building inspector, what cost and everything, and he said, well, as far as Wedgewood Gardens, you could put those up for a temporary block, but it costs some money. And so, the mayor's got $120,000 for something like that. That would be one way of putting, stopping the water from coming out of the river for a temporary solution until we could get something permanent done. So that's just one way of looking at it. I'm not saying that Wedgewood Gardens would be a permanent place, but it'd be a way to have another option on the table.
Thank you, Councilor Son. Councilor Mass?
Thank you, President Reil. I just want to address some of the concerns of my colleagues and perhaps ask a question of them. First of all, this ordinance as written doesn't allow anybody, it's neutral as to who. No one would be able to camp on the common, not for a protest, not for any reason you can set up a tent. I'm open to a change to that. I'm open to doing that by permit of the Board of License Commissioners, so that some strict guidelines could be put in place on how that would be done, what time of day tents would have to be knocked down, those kinds of issues. I haven't proposed leaving no site. I actually have proposed another site, the Wedgewood Garden site. I know it's not a great site, but it is another site. The question I put out to councilors is there's a suggestion here that we're going to create all these alternatives and no one's going to want to be there. And my concern is that we are not actually going to create all those alternatives, or despite creating all those alternatives, we are going to continue to have a problem. And while I understand the feeling of people, some people who do feel comfortable out there, that I can tell you, and I know you all know because you've heard from the people who don't feel comfortable, who do object to the people who are out there, that there are many people who don't feel comfortable going to the town common. We heard it from a few of them tonight with the situation as it is now. They don't find it as beautiful as a site as it once was. They don't feel that it is as solemn for memorial purposes as it once was. They don't have enough space as it once did. I can tell you, you cannot have the Women's March that had 900 people down on the common with the 14 tents that are up there now. I think it would be very difficult to occupy that space for that same purpose. I suggest to you that everyone has a right to use this space, and that is why historically the Board of License Commissioners, which has always governed that space until 3 years ago, tends to set durational and space limits. They say, okay, you can be over here and you can be over here during this time if there are conflicts, or they say, okay, you can use it from this hour to this hour, right? And there's something about it. I didn't think this was an issue, as pressing of an issue when I first filed this motion, because there were only two tents there, and there was a small number of people, and that space was open to most people. I agree, and I feel comfortable going down there too. I want you to know that I don't feel uncomfortable. But now there are 14 tents, and it occupies an awful lot of that space, and there's nothing to prevent even more tents from going up there and more space from going up. And there's no end in sight for those people who have a concern, who do want to use it for other purposes and don't feel comfortable despite what we're saying. And this is not about pitting one group over another, but it's about giving everyone an opportunity to exercise space in their own time in a way that they feel safe and comfortable, and that is enjoyable to them. And I know that I don't say this for the purpose of suggesting that one need is more important than another. These things are not mutually exclusive. It is not impossible to care about people who are homeless and also to care about having a beautiful town common that is available to everyone, that we invest in, that is symbolic of our community as a whole. And I put it to my colleagues, how do we get there if there's no end date in sight, if there's no restriction on use, if we don't do anything, and we just create alternatives, and people continue to persist to be there, at what point? When do we make a decision? And I'm open to ideas. If there's a date in the future that this should be reconsidered, I'm open to it. I want to hear what and if the position of my colleagues is never, right? People should be able to camp there for as long as they want, for as long as we have a town common. I respect that. I know that some of my colleagues don't agree with me on everything. But I want to hear from you where you see that line that needs to be, where the rest of the community that does have a problem with this can have their needs met as well.
Councilor Gilmore?
I'm concerned that, I think my main concern here is I want to make sure that people have options, and if for some reason those things fall through, there's something for them to fall back on. I don't think they want to be on the common. I don't think anyone is under the impression that they're trying to just pull off the common from us. So I'm really worried that if we pass this tonight and Wedgwood Gardens doesn't work out and the energy park doesn't work, if nothing else works out, then what? So I feel like, let's open up these alternatives first. And if that solves the problem, we don't even have to deal with this. If it doesn't solve the problem, then we don't have to go back and undo it.
I'm just gonna speak on this. I agree with Councilor Gilmore. My fear is that we pass this tonight, and I mean, this is a problem that has been years in the making, and we're not gonna solve it in one night. We've come up with a couple solutions, and we can table this. We can do some research. We can have another meeting next week. There's nothing stopping us from having another meeting where we just focus on this before the regular town council meeting on the 15th, so that it stays right in our purview. But I feel like there's still some unanswered questions that we don't know yet, and I am not inclined to want to put these restrictions on the common until we know what the exact plan is. So if my hope would be to, perhaps somebody might want to table this, but Councilor Dolan and Councilor Stephen.
I guess I just want to make a general comment. The only solution to homelessness is housing. And there are places that have done that very well. Utah was brought up earlier in the meeting. Like, we have tendency to talk about homelessness in this country as an impossible or unsolvable problem, and it's actually not. So I would like to move forward with that in mind. And I'm also conscious that from talking to the folks who've been living there, living on the common is a pragmatic act, but it's also to an extent a political act. And even if that's not how it was intended, like, that is a demonstration. That is a demonstration for all of the citizens of Greenfield that there's a problem in the community. And quite frankly, I don't necessarily want to take that away. I don't want to take the capacity demonstration from people in the future. So for me, the end date is creating a better option. That's my perspective.
Councilor Stemple?
What he said.
Councilor Sun?
I think we need to investigate all applicants instead of just putting one aside, just go and try to solve this thing instead of just, and as far as this goes, I think we should table everything until we make another either emergency meeting or get it solved first. Whatever comes available, hit it head on instead of put it on the back burner and not have anything happen.
Is that a motion, Councilor Song?
Yes,
Second.
Is that a motion to table?
yes.
Non-debatable, it's a non-debatable motion, so there's been a motion made to table, it's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion's been tabled. Vice President Ricketts? Or were you just going to make the motion to table?
Oh, no, if I say something else, that's fine.
Okay. Do you want to speak?
All right, so here's where we're at right now. That motion by Councilor Mass, which was a thoughtful motion, you know, sometimes it's hard to be people when you write motions because they get picked apart, and so thank you for doing that, and sometimes it feels defeatist. But this was just tabled. And I want to ask the councilors right now before we move on, because I think we need more investigation and answers. And I want to call another meeting next week. And I'm wondering, it's just a show of hands. Who's better on a Wednesday night?
You're in here.
How about the night of chairs, which is Tuesday night, August 7th? Who does Tuesday night
I don't know if that gives us, I don't know that that gives us enough time though. Wednesday is appointments and ordinances.
Two appointments and then there's issues that put on.
Our regular council meeting is only 2 weeks from now.
Regular council meetings on the 15th.
I like the special meeting because, as the mayor said, it gives us an opportunity to focus on just this. I know that we do have our regular council meeting, but I'm not inclined to put this off until then.
What's Thursday? Off the top of my head, A&O has 2 appointments, the plastic bag ordinance and the table tree ordinance. Plastic bag public hearing.
7 a.m. That's Wednesday. I have a protest on Providence Hospital if anybody wants to go. I'm announcing this. Wait a second. I have to go. It ends at a certain time.
Greenfield, not you're protesting somewhere else.
It's part of my day job. Hang on, I'm trying to think. It goes
Part of your
until...
day job, then you should be here.
Sir, you need to pipe down. I'm just trying to remember when this ends. Okay, I think Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I think that would work. So I haven't scheduled it yet. So let's just keep that date open. Possibly it would be Thursday. Because I don't think we're going to do anything else here tonight. Unless anybody else has a motion. Councilor Dolan?
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the code of the town of Greenfield, section 346-2, by adding after the words town common and before the words and conservation lands, the words, comma, municipally owned property along Kimball Drive off Coleraine Street, known as Wedgewood Gardens.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Councilor Gilmore?
Could you explain what that does briefly?
So that's just to take the closed hours off of the Wedgewood property. So it's that component of Councilor Mass's proposal without anything related to the comment.
Is there other discussion? I'd like to make an amendment to also add Energy Park.
Madam President, I can tell you that that would make the amendment a poison pill for me because of the activities that are going on in Energy Park. I know I'm only one vote, but I'd like to get more information on that. I would be willing to consider it at a future meeting, once we know what the activities are in that location.
Is there a second for the amendment?
For you?
Yeah. Is anybody going to say? Okay, so it's been made and seconded. Councilor Mass already voiced his opposition to it. Anybody else on adding Energy Park? Okay, so we're just going to vote on the amendment to the main motion, which is to add Energy Park to the Wedgewood Garden motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call vote?
Councilor Sun,
No.
Councilor Dolan,
Yes.
Councilor Gilmore. No. Councilor Mayo,
Yes.
Councilor Winovich,
No.
Councilor Mass,
No.
Vice President Ricketts. Yes. Councilor Stemple.
No.
The amendment to the motion fails. So now the main motion on the table is for Wedgewood Gardens. Any discussion? Councilor Leonovich?
Was it my understanding that the Conservation Commission has authority over that area? So should we also either include or, I don't know, table this till we can speak to the Conservation Commission?
Good question. Councilor Dolan?
My understanding is that this doesn't do anything to sanction camping. Any camping would still be under the purview of a permit from the Conservation Commission. All it does is remove the hours when it's closed explicitly. So this is just one step in the process.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Is there any other discussion tonight?
Question, I mean, as a comment, it's kind of self-explanatory, but with regard is anywhere, any other so-called campgrounds, it doesn't mean that people can actually build fires. Am I correct? Fire. I just want to be able to have all the information if something like this were to happen. What would you do if there were fires?
So it depends on the regulation that's set by the town on the use of the land. There are certain restrictions, but if there is a small grill, as long as it's safe to use, there is no permit required to have that. Answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, so summary of where we are. We've allowed Wedgewood Gardens to open up. We've moved for churches to open up, hopefully. We have decided to come back on the town common that's been tabled, so we're going to look at that again. We're going to take some time, possibly meet next week. That's where we're at right now, Councilman.
Porta potty.
Oh, I'm sorry, and also we have passed a motion for porta potties.
President Reil, thank you for recognizing me again. I know it's been a long night for my colleagues. I just wanted to take this opportunity to address what I think is probably the most troubling aspect of the current use of the property to the most of the people who I've talked to who have complained. And that is that the tents that are there do not stay up all day long. And I am interested to hear from my colleagues if they would be willing to set any time restrictions at which time, the time by which tents need to come down for the day and be re-erected at night. I know that that would give a lot of relief to the people who are concerned about the way that that site looks.
Native Americans, reservations. Let's send them to the reservations. I know, I'm not allowed to speak. I'm not allowed to speak, and I'm not allowed to say that there's some kind of protection for the turtles that are along that river that lay eggs, and there's some kind of thing that you can't be doing tents and things there.
Okay.
Just take that into consideration. Those are the only two things.
Councilman
The
Gilmore?
only two things.
I don't see why we're gonna make them take their tents down. It creates a lot of unnecessary work. You know, I just feel like everything feels like it's just punitive, and I just feel like we should make things as easy as we can for people while they're trying to get through this time.
Any other discussions? Okay, Councilman.
Just what she said.
Okay.
Ditto.
Is there any other discussion? I think we're going to return to this. Thank you all for your patience, for your willingness to stay here and listen and be respectful. And
Can I ask one question?
no, sir, you can't. Wait till we're adjourned, and then you can ask us, one by one. So, and I want to. No, I understand, and I'm glad that you asked, but if it's a question for one of us or all of us, you can ask us right after.
It's for everybody.
Okay, well, just ask us right. Just let us adjourn and then you can ask us, okay? All right, everybody, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it, close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Reil Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.